And the gallery can talk on ours.
This is true. That's why I thought that.
All right, good evening, everybody. We're going to begin here momentarily. If you can ensure your cell phones are off or on silent, and council, ensure your microphones are turned on. Before we do begin today, ask any committee members that call on someone from the gallery to keep in mind that not to have them getting up and down if they can help it. But we do need people from the gallery to step up and speak into the microphone. We had a whole bunch of comments from the public saying they didn't know who was speaking or what they were saying. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Today's May 19th, 2025. It's the Committee of the Whole meeting of Barberton City Council today. Before we begin the Committee of the Whole meeting, we do have individual committee meetings and a special rules. We'll kick it off with street, sidewalk, and lighting with Ms. Speck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today is May 19th, 2025. It is 6:04 p.m. We are in council chambers. All members of my committee are present, including members of council minus Ms. Thompson and all other members noted on my sheet. Tonight we have one request for legislation. A letter from Michael Tiadecki, city engineer, requesting legislation to authorize the mayor to amend 41-2025. As actual bid came back at $165,000 and $118,000 for the final cost for PID 122321, the sidewalks on and near Van Buren. Emergency wording requested. Please see request. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at that? Came in on May 12th. So basically the actual bid came in about $5,000 over what the estimated bid was. So, any remarks from my committee?
Is this money coming out of the CDBG funds also?
So that would be where it would be reimbursed from, I believe. Is that correct, Todd?
Well, so I mean, I believe that the CDBG is it's 100,000. It's not 105,000. That number has not changed. The cost of the job increased. So there's no more money coming out of the CDBG funds than what was discussed before. So this will be our local match.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. CDBG. Anybody else from the rest of council? Any remarks? Gallery? All right. Hearing no more comments, may I have a motion to bring this to a vote?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we don't have any pending legislation up, but I wanted to first thank all the street department and everybody clearing up the absolute mess that was left from Friday night's storm. They were out there almost immediately getting things picked up. I was very impressed with the cleanup effort that happened. As of this morning, there were two streets that were still partially closed off or closed off. East Lake Avenue between 3rd and 4th. That was, a large tree was still down on the road. I drove by this morning and they were almost finished clearing it up. At about 4:15, it was gone, but the street was still closed off. So I don't know what happened in about the last hour and a half, but that part is still closed off between 3rd and 4th. And then 29th, there was a large tree down there. Parks are next, so those will get cleaned up soon. We had to get rid of everything off the roads first, then we'll go to the parks. But I saw Ohio Edison around putting up new poles, linemen everywhere. So this effort was really great, and I'm very, very pleased and grateful for what we had. But anybody else have any other miscellaneous things?
No, I'm just going to piggyback off what you said. People have to understand that even though there is a tree that comes down in the street, if it brings down wires, it's not the city crew's responsibility to go out and cut that tree up. That's First Energy's responsibility, who will send their tree crews out to take care of that. I had some people ask me some questions about that. We're not going to send our city crews to deal with wires that may be live, may not be live, we don't know. But that's why you pay electric bill. They are responsible for taking care of that.
Indeed, thank
So.
you. Jen?
Just also, shout out not only to our street crews that have done an amazing job, but to Ohio Edison. They were actually bringing in workers from out of state to help get this cleaned up as quickly and everybody's electricity on as quickly as possible.
Okay. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I've seen Director Shreve.
Yes, sir.
So, how's it feel to have a 5 foot 350 pounds off your back now that the lights are functioning at Snyder and Van Buren?
Well, I'm just happy that they're, not flashing anymore. Yes, sir.
They did come up Friday morning. If
Okay,
anybody didn't
good,
tell you.
good.
And quickly knocked out.
No, I don't think they lost.
Good.
They didn't lose power there.
All right. Anybody else? Anybody from the gallery? All right. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
We are adjourned at 6:10.
Thank you, Ms. Beck. All right, next up is Environmental Health and Social Services with Mrs. Hager.
President Greer, Environmental Health and Social Services, meeting in council chambers Monday, May 19th at 6:07 PM. All members of my committee, with the exception of Taylor Thompson, are present, along with other council members and guests as noted on my sheet. We have no request for legislation, no pending legislation, and do I have anything from my committee or the body? Yes, Councilman Heidi.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Mayor, was I correct in seeing that there are certain places there is going to be a drop-off for yard debris? Or was that something privately being done?
I believe we didn't have anything
Not yet.
set for that. But that's something that we've discussed, but we want to make sure that the roadways are clear and all of that before.
So it was probably a private venture that was doing that?
Could be. I did not see that
Okay.
close to whatever, wherever, so.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Harris.
I did see mulch makers are taking debris for free. Typically, you're charged for it. So, how long that lasts, I don't know. But it's free right now.
Generally, until people start putting things like trash or stuff that will
Well,
harm their
this would just be your
grindings.
tree limbs and,
Right, right. But anything that will hurt their grinder, they will get
oh,
upset
yeah.
about.
I mean, that's
Please don't do
that's
that.
something that you'd have to go to their website and get the rules for.
Yeah.
Anything from the body, from the gallery? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
And with that, we are adjourned at 6:09.
Thank you, Ms. Hager. Next up is Planning, Annexation, and Codes with Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning, Annexation, and Codes. It is Monday, May 19th, 2025, 6:09 in council chambers. The committee is present, which consists of Councilors Harris, President Greer, myself as chair, with co-chair Taylor Thompson absent. We have one request. Comes from Director Carr requesting legislation to pay an invoice to Ohio Edison in the amount of $14,898.59 for the removal of light poles on 2nd Street Northwest. Emergency wording and one week reading has been requested, and this will be referred to Finance. Are there any questions, concerns, comments from the body? Gallery? Seeing none, do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
We have no appointments, nothing pending. The director is not here. Is there any miscellaneous for planning? Mr. Best, commissions tomorrow. Anything juicy coming up?
Deny a CUP that's been operated out there.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that would be in your ward.
Yes.
I know.
Well, seeing nothing else, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 6:11.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick. And Finance and Personnel with Mrs. Thompson. Mrs. Thompson is absent currently. So, Co-Chair, Mr. Heidick.
And thank you again, Mr. President. Finance and Personnel, Monday, May 19th, 2025, 6:11 PM in council chambers. The committee is present, which consists of Councilors Griffin, President Greer, myself as vice chair. The chair, Taylor Thompson, is absent. First request is from Director Carr requesting legislation to pay an invoice to Ohio Edison in the amount of $14,898.59 for the removal of light poles on 2nd Street Northwest. Emergency wording and one reading has been requested. This was referred 30 seconds ago from me. Does anybody think anything? All right, do I have a motion to call for this? Thank you. Second?
No, I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Next is a request from President Greer requesting legislation to amend Ordinance 47, 2021, compensation for elected officials. The charter dictates we do this X amount of days, within X amount of days before the election, and this would be for the two at-larges and the council president, which would effectively keep the same compensation for the next term. Are there any comments? Seeing none, do I have a motion to call for this?
So moved.
Thank you.
And I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Next is from Director Patterson of Parks and Rec, requesting legislation to appropriate $3,000 from the unappropriated item of the general fund to the Parks Administration operating and maintenance budget of the general fund. One reading and emergency wording is requested. Is there any comments from the body? Gallery? Seeing none, do I have a motion to call for this?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Next is a letter from Chief Polisek of the Fire Department requesting legislation to appropriate $15,000 from the unappropriated item of the general fund to the Fire Department's operation and maintenance budget. One reading and emergency wording requested. Any questions on this from the body? Gallery? Seeing none, do I have a motion to call for this?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Next is from Director Shreve of Public Service requesting legislation to authorize payment to Multi-Force Systems Corporation for the annual fuel serve contract in the amount of $3,944. One reading, emergency wording requested. Are there any comments from the body? Gallery? Seeing none, do I have a motion to call for this?
So moved.
Thank you.
And I'll second.
Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have no pending legislation. Is there any miscellaneous discussion for finance from the body? From the gallery? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you.
And I'll second.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 6:14.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Heidick. All right. Last but not least is a special rules marketing development with Ms. Gerhart.
Thank you, President Greer. At this time, I'd like to call the Rules, Marketing, and Development Special Committee meeting to order. Today is Monday, May 19th. It is 6:14 p.m., and we are in council chambers. All members of my committee are present, including myself as chair, Mrs. Beck as co-chair, Mr. Heidick, and President Greer. All their members of council are present, with the exception of Mrs. Thompson, and then others noted on my sheet. We are going to be continuing the discussion from last week, but this week we will be talking about the charter changes that council members have brought up. Prior to us getting started, a couple reminders, like President Greer said, anybody from the gallery will need you to come up to the microphone and say who you are and speak into the microphone. I will be doing a better job of reining us in this time and sticking with our committee talking, and then the rest of council, then the gallery. And prior to us getting started, Mrs. Angeloff asked if she could speak, and I'd like to give her that time.
I want to thank you. I'm a little under the weather, so very hard for me to sit there without that long, but hopefully everybody can hear me. I'm Nina Angeloff, and I was on the 2025 Charter Review Commission, and I want to thank Council for allowing me to be on it. That was a real experience that I just didn't realize it was that intense, so I want to thank you, and if anybody ever would want to be on it, this is a good committee, in my opinion. I would like to address Council this evening regarding the duties and responsibilities of the 2025 Charter Review Committee. At our very first meeting that we had, we were told that we had responsibilities, and we were told what they were. Simply to put changes and suggestions on paper or on an iPad, whatever you have, on your phone. Discuss as a group. We receive legal advice from our law director, and then we voted on each change or suggestion that we had. And that was on each issue. And if we had to do some research, then we didn't even vote on it till the next time. We worked as a group, reviewing any and all changes from the committee and from others. As a reference, we reviewed other cities' charters and even did some of our own investigating ourselves. Mrs. Miller made sure that we had copies of the other charters from the other cities so we can, review, compare, review. Our last meeting, our last responsibility, and most important responsibility, was to present our findings to Council. We all agreed to try to be present at last week's Council meeting to answer any questions and to explain some of our changes. There were 4 out of 7 that was there last week. I have 2 right now that are here this week to answer any questions, and they're much smarter than me, so they can answer. They're great. It is my opinion, I said my opinion, that some of the questions and comments from Council were inappropriate. As I said before, we worked as a group of 7. I am sorry to say the conversations of last week sounded as though it was us against you, which was very unfortunate, and it wasn't true. The 2025 Charter Review Commission is finished, and now it is up to Council to decide what is best for our community and our citizens, and to put away any ill feelings aside. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to get started on page 6. And remember, everybody, we're just looking at what's in green this week. And Mrs. Miller has now joined us at the microphone.
Yeah, I just wanted to say Holly Johnson Perry is here. She was not able to be here. She was the other member of the Charter Commission that wasn't here last Monday. John White was also on the Charter Commission, and Charlie Reese. But I just wanted to introduce Holly because I don't think many of you have met her.
Thank you, Holly, for coming.
Thank you.
So the first thing I'm seeing in green is commencing with the general election in the year 2027, the mayor shall be limited to 3 consecutive terms. Would anybody on my committee like to speak about this or have any thoughts or questions? Mrs. Beck.
This is going to come up a couple of times tonight. I think 3 times, I think it's on here. Last year when this came up, I did say we have term limits. It's voting. I still feel the same as I did last year, that turning over a mayor every 3 years or whatever the elected official may be, this is going to go for all of them. So I'll just say it all now. I think you will exhaust your willing participants, your qualified participants. You'll exhaust your talent much quicker. But also lastly, and I think most importantly, I I think this weekend's the voice of your vote. You only get to elect somebody 3 times, or, it just takes away from your vote, and I really don't care for it. So, we talked a lot last week about Barberton being smaller and smaller. Well, if it's smaller and smaller, we can't also have this for any of it. So that's all I'll say about it, because I talked a lot about it last year. But those are, in a nutshell, how I feel about this. Thank you.
You're welcome. Would anybody else on my committee like to speak on this? Would anybody else on council like to say anything about this? Would anybody in the gallery like to talk about this? Seeing none, we're going to go to the next green line. Such budget shall be presented presented to council by, so basically this is putting a date to have the budget to council. Does anyone on my committee have any thoughts or questions, or Mr. Heidick?
Thank you, Chair. As I said last time we talked about this particular one, I don't believe this one is a good idea. I think it handicaps a new mayor. I think it handicaps a sitting mayor. And I think that given that big software update where our budget wasn't like the previous years and kind of a disaster, and I know the director's working through all that, I think there can be a better way. Maybe if the department heads would have their breakdowns when they do their presentations, because they all submit their budgets to the mayor compiles it. Mayor, you don't know every single thing off the top of your head about the Parks Senior Center, what they plan on buying with $1,000, do you? The director would. And I think that instead of trying to set a hard date that I really believe handicaps any mayor, that we need to work with the administration and the department heads to be more prepared and more clear with their budgets when they do their presentations. I just don't think setting a hard date inside of the charter, I think that's kind of a knee-jerk reaction to something that happened this year by switching software, and I don't think it's a good idea to embed in this particular document. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody else on my committee have anything they'd like to say about this? I will obviously need to politely disagree with you, Mr. Heidick, because I'm the one who put it as an amendment I'd like. So for 2 years, we've actually had it at the absolute last minute, and last year we didn't have new software. Department heads say that these conversations start in August. So in 4 months, you probably have an opportunity, if you're a department head, to meet with the mayor and say, this is what this is in the Active Adult Center. So that's 4 months prior. And even if you were a new mayor, the draft of the budget coming to us is not what is set in stone. So you would, as a new mayor, you'd be learning everything about the city. So I think you would have the time to make any adjustments or changes as they're happening, if they need to be, in those first few months before we actually have to get it passed. But I thought we saw, even last year, there was, at the last minute, the desire that we could have had more cuts, and we didn't have any. This year we made cuts because it was last minute, but maybe that could have been reallocations versus cuts. But we're down to the wire on all this, even presenting on the last night of the budget. So I just think if we could have it a little sooner, we'd have more time to look it over and ask the questions that we'd like to ask. Does anyone else on council have any thoughts or commentary on this? In the gallery. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, I appreciate the conversation, but respectfully, I disagree. Every mayor operates differently. We talk about the budget all year long. I start meeting with department heads in August. Things do change over 4 months. Personnel issues, equipment issues, new equipment, projects, programs, grants at the state level, county level, federal level, they all change. I meet with department heads starting in August, so to get them thinking about other things. So I always ask the chiefs, who could retire? Police and fire, they have, what's that called? Drop. They don't have to tell us when they're going. And some could just say, hey, walk in one day and go, hey, I'm done next month. Well, that starts a whole cycle and process for HR and the chief and scheduling and everything. So things do change very, very quickly. I start those conversations. We meet several times throughout the fall, the third and fourth quarter. You know, you're not going to get a quote for equipment in August. You're not even going to get one in December and still have it valid in January. So things change. When the budget does come to council, we don't hold the budget up. So I meet on a regular basis with department heads, meet with the finance director. The budgets get turned into the finance director. He compiles everything. We always sit down and talk. We've got a project. How do we fund it? As you've seen, we're very good at trying to get the project done, and sometimes you have to pick from different funds, right, to get that done. It's all legal, but we have to have those conversations, right? And so it's not always easy. We also have to wait until actuals come in, because you can plan whatever you want, but until you know what those actual numbers are, and that's usually the first week of January, finance director gets that to us, then we have another round of meetings. Hey, budget came in better than we expected. Hey, you have these kind of tentative programs or projects over here. Let's see how we can make this work. Or the budget came in worse than what we expected. So what can we cut? We don't budget everything and then just hope, right? We make cuts. We have those difficult conversations. Do you really need this? Can you take some money from here? So when it comes to council and there's additional cuts, department heads may not say anything, but that could be detrimental to the program or the project. We know that from one year to another, there's going to be cost increases. There's going to be logistical issues and all that. Just in front of you this evening, the price of the project with the sidewalks went up $5,000. So to put a time frame on getting a budget to city council, you're going to get an incomplete budget, and it's going to create all kinds of issues throughout the rest of the year, as you're going to have, can't even imagine what type of issues. So I think it'll be a more incomplete budget. This is a two-way street. Anytime council wants to sit down and talk about the budget or talk about future projects or costs or anything like that, feel free to contact us. And I've been trying to reach out to council to set up these meetings, not just to talk about the budget, but to talk about your ward specifically or the city specifically, so we can talk about what you're seeing and what your needs are and how we can best come together and resolve these issues. And it's all through the budget. So.
Can I ask you a question while you're up there, Mayor? How would you find a middle ground then between getting it at the absolute last week that we can possibly have it in order to pass it in time, or a deadline? So what could make council happy and give us more time and give you time to get it there?
I mean, I would reach out. January is not the best month to reach out because there's a lot going on, setting up new POs, trying to get the meetings with the budget. Some people are off. My first year, even though I have a background in accounting and finance, you relied on the finance director. First year, the finance director at the time got sick and went to the hospital for several weeks, right? If I was council, I would reach out and so we can have those meetings and talk about these things. Like I said, department heads, you may cut something and department heads may not tell you how important that project or program is. And it could be detrimental to it. I've sat on council where we got it in March, the budget, right? And when the budget's time and it's tough and it's crunch time, you've got to get creative. It's easy just to say, cut, lay off. I'd like to be creative because there's an expectation from the residents, from council, to provide for the citizens, right? So get more involved. Let's continue to meet. I've gone through budget hearings when I was on council where this is the budget meeting. Any questions on page 1? No. Page 2? No. I thought it was best, to your point, the department heads know their budget better than I do, all the specifics and nuances. It's best that they get up and explain what's going on. So we've come a long way in budget presentations for city council. But if we don't know what you're thinking or what your expectations are, then we can't really find that middle ground. But we're willing to meet with you and talk about how we can get things to you quicker. But there's a lot of work that happens behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. And I think we all understand that. It's just hard if we don't have it. I don't know the questions I should be asking. And then if we're waiting for the presentation, so you'd rather us individually try to track all that down? Maybe all the presentations could be in the first night?
You want all the presentations?
I am throwing out, I'm just trying to think
You're not
of,
limited in asking your questions based on the timing of the presentations. So if building department's going the last night and you have a question the first night, send that to us. That's why I always say email them to us, because then we'll get you we'll get the whole council that answer, because someone else is probably thinking that same question, right? So you're not limited based on when the presentation happens. If the presentation, building department's the first night and we're at the end and you have a question, by all means. And I try to schedule the presentations based on the availability of the staff. So there's really no science behind it.
thank you. Mr. Harris? I can't, I'm sorry.
He said he can go.
I kind of agree with everybody. I do agree with having a deadline, but I also understand, what it takes for all the budget stuff. I think it comes down to us as council members taking that extra moment to ask the department head. I mean, I spent an hour and a half with Parks Director Patterson on the phone, and we went through every question I had. And I knew exactly where this amount of money was going to this and that, and I mean, it kind of, it comes down on us too. So, but I do agree with a deadline, but I also understand the headaches that happen, in doing the budget. So, it's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Mr. Heidig, where you had your hand up?
Thank you, Chair. There was a very fortunate time, I believe, what was that, maybe 3 years ago, with the former council, that it was extremely fortunate because we had a fifth Monday in January. We elected to have a solid budget work session instead of having that Monday night off. What came about that session was there was no committee meetings, there was none of this. We spent, what was that, about 2-3 hours on that? Mayor, you remember that one. We had such detail and so many questions answered. I was the chair of finance at the time, that the council individually I asked, and everybody was so satisfied, we actually were able to pass the budget on the first reading. Maybe that is more of a solution, that we need to, the future councils need to set up an absolute work session instead of trying to cram it in. It's nice that they come in during council, but when we were able to dedicate that year 3 hours of nothing but budget and not worry about anything else, and they are open to the public when we do that, that expedited everything, cleared so many things up. So once again, I don't agree with the deadline, but I think that, to everybody's point, we can all work together to find a better way. If I know I keep saying parks, but it's just easy to just say parks. But Mayor, if the parks budget is going to be next week, let's say, is it possible to get our hands on just that budget and basically from the director to have his explanation beforehand? Fund number this is what I'm going to use. Basically, whatever he'd turn in to you, a spec sheet. I'm trying to figure out the right word here. That we would have that when they come in, so we would already know questions. Because obviously my thing of $1,000 at the senior center. Well, he has a plan for it, and it's in Fund 00 whatever. If we had a breakdown of what the director was already doing prior to them coming in, that would help set us up for better success. Is that something that you have during these budget things that we could have beforehand?
I mean, yeah, we talk about everything. I mean, and sometimes there are some line items. Salt, I'm just going to say salt. We throw a number in there, we're kind of bound, that might not be the best example, because we're bound to purchase a certain amount, plus or minus, right? So we put in that number. It could go over the cost, based on the cost of the salt, or it could go, maybe it's not a bad winter and we don't have to purchase all that much. But there's other examples like that, and maybe there's small dollar amounts, where it's like, well, it's $1,000. You've used close to $1,000 every year for the last 10 years on whatever widget it is. I'm not going to go into that much, right? Because you use it all the time. But to your point, I don't think it's, I think we can put something together. I'd have to talk to Jeremy and look at that a little bit more. On your other comment, we've done budget hearings a number of different ways. So we've done it here like you've seen the last 2 years. But yeah, we've had off nights where it's scheduled, it's open to the public, and we come in and, it's 3 hours, like you said, or whatever. So we're open to whatever. But a lot of things get held up until the budget's passed, right? And then that next week, once the budget's passed, appropriations are done, then, Board of Control is crazy with a bunch of, agreements that we have to approve. The sooner we can do that, the sooner we can move these projects and programs forward. So, kind of yes to both.
Thank you.
I don't know with Mr. Flaker not here, when I think of like an Excel document and a line item, I can then add a bunch of notes to that line item, and then I can just hover over and read it. So I think some of this could be solved by the department heads just putting that in, don't you think? So instead of the line that just says professional services, and every single year we say, what is your professional service? You hover over it, and it says like Miss Iceman's, the stuff to cover the police and fire applications, and the new IT stuff, the new communicators, like, so now we already know that's everything that they've put under that professional line. Is that something you've ever seen or thought that could be? Because that'd eliminate a lot of the questions.
It's not, but that's where I'm getting at, that we can find a better way than trying to put a hard deadline into our charter. I just think that this spurred a great conversation of, it was
Yeah,
but we can fix it.
yeah. I even liked the workshop idea.
We can make it a better process ourselves. And the better the process gets, the more streamlined it'll get. But I just disagree with the hard deadline, because the administration sees it as, we need to ask questions. We're saying we don't even know which questions to ask. Well, whose fault is that? Both of ours. Let's hammer it out between the two branches and figure it out and make it better on our own. Thank you.
I've appreciated this conversation. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to say on this? Mr. Easterling beat Mr. Greer.
Well, just because Jeremy's not here, but me and him's had this conversation, even before we went through last budget. He's kind of cleaning a lot of the miscellaneous and getting rid of a lot of the generic words and kind of cleaning up some of those numbers. And I think from our conversations that there's going to be more detailed descriptions on some of those line items, because I was kind of hammering them for a line item budget, but for our software and all that, it's not really doable. But there is some description, that he's going to change, so maybe it's going to clean up some of that. Not all of it, but it's going to clean up some of it.
Okay. Mr. Greer.
Thank you, Chair. Just tapping on, everybody has some pretty good ideas. I'm thinking in this change, if something on the lines of this, it'd be beyond us, right? While we're here, it's cool to have ideas and rules, but you kind of want to make it everlasting. Council, this is just a suggestion.
Yes, sir.
Specifically for rules. Rule 104 in our council rules dictates the days that we meet, including also dictates that we don't meet on fifth Mondays. To the point of Mr. Heidick and us meeting in January, we can add it into the rules specifically that says January, the fifth Mondays, specifically for budget workshop.
I like that.
It's not a deadline, but it does set it in stone for any future council members or the council body that comes in, that fifth Monday in January is allocated for a workshop of the budget. Whether the budget's complete, probably not, but it puts it in front of new council people after we're long and gone, after the mayor's gone and other people are gone, right? Any changes that we make now should be, I feel, last longer. And then any council body could just look at the rules and say, well, January is our workshop month for budgets, and it's in writing. Again, it's not a deadline, but it is kind of gets the administration knowing, like, we need to have something.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to say? Okay. Page 8. At the bottom, Mr. Heidick, would you like to go over this with us?
Well, this one is from, thank you, Chair. This one is basically from Councilor Harris and myself, would be to basically get rid of the building department and instead go to what you'd see later in here, property maintenance and code enforcement, and put under the planning department's purview.
Thank you.
And Councilor Harris, if wants to add to it, you could call on him there.
He doesn't have his hand up yet, so we'll keep it in our committee. Does anybody in my committee have anything they'd like to say about this? Anybody on council? Mr. Easterling?
So this brings Summit County or City Works or whatever in for,
Summit County.
If this would pass, then we would have to pass an ordinance to contract it out, yes.
do we have a apples to apples type deal to know what we're spending now and what we would spend then? I think you talked to
There's-
Randall, right?
There's
Or-
no,
Well,
go ahead, Mr. Harris.
I know we do contract out a lot of our inspection stuff. You know, we're paying, I think I saw $117,000 for plumbing and electrical and maybe even some plan
Sure,
review
plan,
stuff.
Yeah.
So if we send everything to the county, that eliminates our building commissioner, but we still keep the property and make it a property and code enforcement section under the planning department. Because they obviously work together.
Are we bound contractually to Norton? Because don't we do part of their inspections? What
Norton
does that
and,
do to us?
Norton and Barberton would both go to Summit County. So they'd be under the Summit County Building Department.
So if we close, Norton is just, they have to do whatever they have to do, right? I'm
Does-
just saying, but if we did that, are we breaching anything with Norton?
I don't recall the contract exactly, but I imagine there's a notice to terminate in the contract. I just don't recall off the top of my head.
Thank you. That's all I worry about.
Anyone else on council have any thoughts or conversation about this? Anyone from the gallery? Mayor?
Yes, thank you. We've looked at this numerous times. I actually worked in the county, in the Finance and Budget Office when the county merged and brought on the city of Akron and Cuyahoga Falls and Talmadge. So if we spend $117,000 on inspections, we're still bringing in almost $500,000, right? That includes rental registration, but that's where we are about now, today. So we would lose all permit revenue. We would still have the cost of every property maintenance inspector, so that's wages, roll-up cost. So how's that going to get paid? Because right now, all of the plan review fees, the permit fees, everything that we charge for inspection, all that goes in the general fund, so that helps offset the cost for everyone. So we're in the black. Building department's in the black. We took over the property, or the inspection and plan reviews for the city of Norton. We provide a quicker service. You don't have to go to Talmadge Avenue if you live in Barberton or Norton. It's right here. And I feel we give a better product. So we would lose all that revenue that we could generate from Norton. So spend $117,000, and I know that's just on the inspections, it's not wages and all that. But we're in the black, we're not in the red. So that's more to the general fund, more to operate, and we provide a better service. So if you don't have people going to the county and getting permits, or they're doing work and they're not getting inspections, who's monitoring that? And now are you going to have more, less development in the neighborhoods, more nuisances because things aren't being done the right way and they're not being inspected, and the city's losing out on revenue. So we've looked at this a million ways, and if you're going to spend $117,000, but you're going to get by the end of the 5th month of the year, almost $500,000 with rental registration, I would take that all day long, right? So, and the $117,000, I believe, is that a net cost, or is that just budgeted for throughout the year?
That's what I looked at.
So,
But I'll ask you a question since you're standing there. You said we took over Norton's plan review. Do we not contract that out anyways ourselves?
so
That's part of the cost that we're
well, we have
spending, correct?
an employee.
Part-time
that's
employee?
Part-time, yeah.
So we're paying them. And then we're also paying some of our property maintenance inspectors out of our rental registration fees.
Correct.
But there's a lot of money coming out of the rental registration fees for property maintenance. So everything that I've heard from companies to people, they've had nothing but headaches with our building department in getting their permits issued, getting inspections. It just seems like it's a big headache because there's no communication. There's a lack of communication between that office and people that are trying to get permits. I can speak from personal experience. All right. There's a huge lack of communication, and I'm not sure that it's beneficial to us. I think property maintenance is more important than, you obviously see our city every day. Everybody does. I think we beef up that department and let them get our city cleaned up. I've not heard, bad things about the county. I understand that you do it all online. They do virtual inspections at some places, I think, for some things. I think it's a good idea, personally.
So we've heard some complaints about the building department as well. We heard complaints about the building department under previous CBOs. So, I've also heard a lot of compliments too. So, and we are always fine tuning things. I don't think we haven't had a process like we have now. The process is working very well. And it's only going to get better because we're continuing to look at it and examine it and make it better. But if you want to beef up the property maintenance inspectors, and I agree that I want to beef it up as well, how do you pay for it? If you're taking money out of the budget, a large chunk of the money, how do you pay for it? CDBG is not guaranteed. That's a grant every year. And there's a lot of talk at the federal level of doing away with HUD and CDBG. So that pays for some of their salaries and stuff. Now you're relying on solely rental registration. Well, what happens if people start selling their rentals and now their registration goes down? Now you're more in line with and rental registration, you have to use that for salaries where there's, rentals. There's some neighborhoods where there aren't any rentals, right? So what happens, and there's still property maintenance issues there. Now you're more relying on the general fund, but you just cut that out because now the county's getting all that. And we have had discussions with other surrounding communities who want to join and are looking at our building department.
Have you discussed with the county and sending our permit stuff to them?
When I first became mayor, I did. Again, I worked on this. I did the auditing and the accounting when I worked for the county. Looking at where we are today versus where we were when I started and taking on Norton, we were always in the red in the building department. But would you rather have, be in the red by $5 or be in the red by $500,000, right? So we're in the black now. I don't want to lose that revenue, and I do think that overall we provide a great service. So how are you going to pay for the property maintenance inspectors if you're cutting away this general fund money?
Okay.
If property maintenance brought in more money, then that's something I would look at, right? But it doesn't. So you've got clerks, you've got the CBO, you've got the contract employees, right? So you brought those up. You've got the property maintenance inspectors that do more than property maintenance, right? They're looking at sidewalks and gas line replacement and things like that. I'd like to beef that up too. Myself, the public service, we talk about this all the time. It's just, I want to make sure it's sustainable too. That's my big thing. I don't want to ever hire someone and go, we felt that there could be a loss of revenue over here, but we hired someone anyways, and now it's a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, that revenue's gone, and now we got to look at layoffs.
What
So,
does, oh, sorry.
Do you mind if I
Oh, go ahead,
interject
go
in
ahead,
something
go
here? Excuse me. So in 2024, we were able to bring in over $309,000 from Norton. And then Barberton brought in 267, and I'm not given the full amounts, but I have it. Do you know how much of that is in our rental registration, what we're bringing in rental registration?
No, I don't have the
So,
budget in front of me.
so really we're probably in the red so well because of Norton with all their,
No,
because they're
we're-
bringing in way more for permits than we are.
No, we were always bringing in way more than Norton.
I mean, I have this from the building department, and Norton brought in total revenue of 309, Barberton brought in 267.
I don't know what's on there. I'm not saying it's not.
Oh, okay.
I just don't know.
Yeah, I asked for the breakdown between what Norton brings in permits and what Barberton, and you also have your contractor registration in here too. So I was just curious what from Barberton is rental registration. And then Mr. Harris is referencing, I'm thinking you're referencing, the professional service line on our budget. So last year we spent $111,000 on that professional service line. And in the budget talks, that was because we have to contract with Summit County already for their electrical inspector, their plumbing. And then we also did a internal, I think her name's Angela, for a plan examiner. But prior to this year, I think we were having Summit County do that also.
No.
We weren't having Summit County review any of our,
Well, Angela had worked for us in a different capacity, contract employee, and now she's a kind of a part-time employee. I'd have to see, I believe we used another group
Different
for
group.
plan reviews, not the county.
Okay.
I'd have to confirm that.
Do we have-
And I don't have what you have in front of you, so I'd love if you sent that to me.
yeah, I got it from the building department, they forwarded it to me. And that's just out of my budget book.
Okay.
Okay. So I know, and I'm going to speak differently. I've never had to pull a permit or anything, but I worked for electrical contractors for several years prior to being on council or running for council. I can pull a building permit or electrical permit, excuse me, with the county, pay for it, schedule my inspection all before I have lunch. I was about 3 days with Barbertons. Like it's a lot different trying to work with Barbertons. The online, getting a hold of anybody, it's a loop when you call in. I don't know, Mr. Shreve and I talked about that a couple years ago. You can't get to anybody, you're not reaching anybody. Everybody talks about they still need the ability to come in. Chris Randall said since COVID, they never have anybody at their counter because everything is done online. Summit County Building Department's probably the best in Ohio for that. And again, electrical, our electrical inspector here is Alicia. She's with the county. She can't come till after 4 o'clock. So if you're trenching and you have to lay your electrical line, you have to wait till 4 o'clock and pay your excavator to come back a different day to cover your trench, whereas Summit County offers virtual inspections. So it's a better service. I get that if we were to lose the permits, I don't know what the rental registration would be, but we'd also be looking at eliminating that professional line because that would all go to the county. And then we would be able to not have a building commissioner, which probably after insurance and all the extra expenses that go into salaries, that's probably over $200,000 in savings. Do you think by focusing on property maintenance and stuff that we would be able to increase what we could bring in on that?
No, how do you generate money from property maintenance?
Law Director Miller, is there a way to enforce that so that we get money on it? I mean, other counties are doing this.
If there are other communities generating revenue through property maintenance, I would love to see that would be great.
So basically, they can ticket and they're getting some money. It's just not enough to bring them out of a red.
Okay, so it's like the police department, right? And Councilman Harris can tell you about it. There is, the idea that if the police write more tickets, their budget goes up and they get more money. That's not true. The reason why is because it would appear not great, right? They're writing tickets perhaps for the wrong reasons. I would argue that that same thing would go to property maintenance inspectors, right? The more tickets they write, the more revenue is generated, and it goes back to that department. So fines that are generated through speeding tickets or any type of fine that's levied in the court here goes into the general fund. It does not go back to any specific department.
Thank you. I will come back to you. Mr. Heidick had his hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure with the Norton numbers that was from last year. Is that what you were saying?
This is what was requested from the building department.
Right, but the 300,000, was that?
So we give a 10% back to them.
Permit revenue. Okay, so,
So after we give back the 10% from what we brought in, they're saying that that's what we brought in.
because I know that what I was, let's see, Norton. You see a jump in Norton, but I'm not sure if that's kind of a off year for them. The only reason I say that is with that Brookside development, that may have bashed in a one-time as fast as they build those things.
Well,
But
they would have had Sheets last year. They would have had their water tower, this year, Dunkin' this year, Taco Bell this year. I mean, you got a lot happening there.
To see a jump like that, to me, automatically throws a flag up. Something happened one time. That's not a sustainable thing for Norton.
Forever.
But my other point was going to be that if we just gutted everything down to property maintenance and code enforcement, and as you said, we would be saving money on professional services, we would be saving money this, and this, how would it balance? To the mayor's point, how would we bring in revenue? If we were to go with that, how many people do we actually need if we're just doing property maintenance and code enforcement? Right now, how many inspectors do we have? And if they were all focused on that, do we really need them all? Because haven't we turned over the building, pretty much the entire building department over the last 2 years anyway?
Yes.
I think a couple times.
So do we need, if we were to whittle it down to just property maintenance and code enforcement, maybe we only need half that workforce.
No, I mean, where we stand now, I'd like additional code enforcers, because they do a lot more than just property maintenance inspections. So I would like to beef that up. That's more cost. You've got, we're soon to be 2.5 clerks there. Do you need all of them? I mean, these are discussions we have to have if this is what the direction that the council and the citizens want, but it's a huge detriment to the city. I guarantee that.
I would just suggest that all of the cities that he said have went to the county over time. I think he mentioned Cuyahoga Falls and Talmadge and Akron. They also have property maintenance and zoning inspectors. So it might be worth trying to figure out how they handle that. Akron obviously would probably be the more akin city, but obviously percentage-wise smaller. But how, I would be interested to understand that. That would be a question I would want to know the answer to. And we do not have enough property maintenance inspectors.
No.
And to be clear, the code official, who is the building commissioner, he's the only one that can enforce building code. Just like Chief Polachek can enforce the fire code. Property maintenance inspectors cannot enforce the building code. So there's no crossover. To your point, like if we didn't have permitting, would you need less property maintenance inspectors? Property maintenance inspectors have nothing to do with permitting, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring that up.
And to your point, there are going to be outliers in Norton and Barberton when there's huge developments. It's going to spike. So I can get you some better stats. We've had a lot of construction going on the last 4 or 5 years in both communities. So it's going to look a lot different the last 4 or 5 years versus when we first started. So I can get those stats. But everything goes up, right? Healthcare, wages, all this stuff, cost of vehicles, it all goes up. If you're not bringing in that revenue to at least cover it.
Can I ask the mayor a question before you speak?
I wanted to speak on Mr.
I know.
Heidick's. Okay.
You went from a hand up to coming on up. I knew you wanted to talk, so give me one moment. Aside from the loss of revenue, Mayor, what else do you see as a negative by us not having our own building department?
The things that you had mentioned with the county and some of the things they can do, they just started that not too long ago. And I'm not taking anything away from the county, right? You can get permits online with us. I know there's been some fine tuning, there's been some hiccups Heck, there's some hiccups with council last week, telling us about the message you guys were getting, trying to get.
See-click fix.
See-click fix with the property maintenance things you're.
Progress.
So things are always looking to get tweaked, and we're always working on that. So, and we work with the county. If there's something we can do to improve the communication or improve the transaction, then we want to do that. And we've had these discussions internally, and we've had it with See-Click Fix and others. I think that people are not going to make use of permits and inspections as much as they do today if we go to the county. The county also, you lose control of what the cost is, so they can increase the cost of a roof permit, right? We've got no say in that. So, we come time to time to city council, what does it actually cost us to issue a roof permit or electrical or whatever? And we come to council every now and then and increase those if it's fairly and just. And I'm not saying the county does anything that's unfair, but you lose that control. I've never heard of a complaint about electrical inspection that had to be, or any type of inspection that had to be scheduled off hours. I have not heard that. I have heard, as I mentioned, and you mentioned, the complaints about the building department. I've also had people contact me with glowing reviews about inspections and the way the department has been handled. Just the other week, met with the developer, big property owner, who was head over heels about the building department. So, I mean, you get both sides, right? Is there room for improvement? Of course. Every community, there's room for improvement. When you take the knees out from underneath someone, and there's a financial penalty, financial issue, I believe a customer service penalty, and you lose control in some of those things I mentioned, it's going to be a huge detriment to the community.
Thank you. Mr. Shreve?
So I wanted to talk on a couple of things. So Mr. Heidig, Councilman Heidig, had mentioned, how many employees do we really need? But you have to remember too, so on the east side right now, Omnifiber's up there. I've got 2 of my property maintenance inspectors that are also versed in communicating with them and making sure and they're following up with them and going behind them and marking up, what needs repair, where the piles of dirt are, those kinds of things. So if we take them and solely focus on property maintenance, that's an engineering aspect that we get out of our property maintenance inspectors. Those are permits that we give, through our building department for them to come in and install that kind of stuff. So, we have to keep in mind that that's always going to happen. As everything progresses, you're going to have contractors coming in town, gas company, annually, they're putting in anode bags, they're running new gas lines, they're doing that kind of thing. We rely on them to inspect them and make sure, follow behind them, make sure the concrete's back, the sidewalks are done, ADA ramps are installed properly. They actually keep track of so we switched to the purple ADA mats so that we can be unique. It's Barberton. Why not have purple ADA mats? That's something that our property maintenance inspectors do that's not property maintenance focused. So I just wanted to kind of make sure you guys keep that in mind. Also, so Angela, who was a private contractor, we hired her on as a part-time employee. She does all our plans examining. She is the best in the business. And that was the reason why we brought her on, was because we wanted to make sure that we're providing the service that we feel that our citizens, our business, the commercial building field deserves. So that's one of the reasons why we brought her on as a full-time employee, or a part-time employee. We've also been in discussions with Norton. And Norton has brought some of these things to our attention. They were looking at the county. They said, hey, we can do online permitting. I said, well, you know what? We can do that too. Let's focus on trying to improve and make this stuff better. This is the first I've heard of virtual inspections. So so do you walk down the trench with a cell phone and they
it geo-tracks you so that they know you're at the property that you have pulled a permit for.
So those are technologies that's not proprietary to the county.
It's not proprietary, but I'm sure they spend a ton of money to have that.
The thing is, though, is like you're talking about throwing away revenue from Barberton instead of how can we make our service better. Maybe something like that. Maybe it's not that much. Maybe it provides another platform where we can do more scheduling, more permit collection and that kind of thing. The other thing is we've switched almost to 100% digital plans now. So I mean, that's something that we didn't do before. You had to come in here lugging in rolls of plans, it might be a 500-page plan, and I need 3 copies of it, because one goes to the fire department, one stays with the CBO, and one goes to the plans examiner. Can you imagine coming in? I mean, so we're trying to do away with that and make that kind of stuff easier. So those are all amenities that we're working on trying to improve and make better in our building department. So I just want to make sure that, you know, you're looking at the big picture. And it's not that we have neglected. We want those amenities. We want to improve, and we would love to keep the revenue. So those are just things to keep in mind.
Thank you, Mr. Shreve. Chief, sorry, I keep wanting to say captain, and I feel like I go the wrong way in titles.
I'm going to revert to when I was fire marshal, because it directly relates to that. When I first took over fire marshal, there was some issues amongst all the departments working together. We worked through those relatively quickly, and I think every department head can speak to that. A lot of things came up. A lot of miscommunication came up from building owners and building tenants. The tenants were being told by the building owners, oh, you don't need to do that. Nobody needs to do that. We'd roll into an inspection. I'd say, hey, you can't do this type of business in this building. Why not? My landlord said I could. Well, your landlord's not following the law. You can't put a daycare center into a building that doesn't have exits. That's illegal. That's against code. Well, we do it in Akron all the time. Oh, okay. Actually, I had one where I called a neighboring community, explained to them what was going on there. They didn't even know this daycare was in existence in their area, had been there for 4 years. They went and did an inspection and shut them down. So this is one of the things. The biggest advantage of having a building department here is in an emergency, when we have a tree fall on a house, I made a phone call, they were there within 5 minutes. When we have a major fire and I have a construction issue and I have to determine if that building's safe or what we need to do, they were there within 5 to 10 minutes. When I'm driving around town and I see a whole house side completely ripped off and there's 3 crews working in there and it's not shored up safely, and I called the building department, they were there in 10 minutes to find out what the heck was going on. And they were told, we're okay, we have a permit. They had no permits whatsoever. So the immediacy is nice. When we do an occupancy permit or something like this, we work together to make sure that we have one group, one meeting, everybody gets together and we work together. We were working well with the health department when we had our rep. We don't have a Summit County Health Department rep that's assigned to us. That person moved to Pittsburgh. I've also heard the complaint that we don't work fast enough. Well, by code, you have 30 days once plans are submitted to get those approved. They try to get them first in, first out. It happens. But sometimes it takes 28 days to get that done. Some of the builders want it done immediately, and I understand why they want it done. And then you show up and it's already done. Well, how do you prove that it was completed properly? Well, we don't need to show that. I also had one builder build a building. There were 20 revisions to that building, and it still wasn't the original plans. And we had to completely change every time we went in there to figure out how to accommodate them so they could run their business in there and still be safe. And it came down to the point where I called my state fire marshal representative and said, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. And he's like, hey, you got to do what you got to do. Document, document, document. And work with the building code. I had another business that moved in. They just opened up one day. And we rolled in and we're like, hey, we told you a year ago you needed to submit this, do this, do this, do this. Got them into court. They lost because of all of the documentation between the building and the fire department that proved that they were not doing there. In fact, the committee that was having the hearing looked at the building owner and said, why are we here? Here's the documentation. It's plain as day. You have violated 35 ordinances and codes. Why are we here? What's the argument? The guy says, I don't know. It was that quick, but it was that also concise that we were there. We had to travel all the way to Ashland because that's where the code meets. But because of having all of our information, we were able to get that taken care of. So not trying to make excuses for anybody, but I know a lot of stuff, we're still dealing with buildings that are 25, 30 years old, problems that haven't been taken care of. We're stepping forward trying to get them through the downtown initiative and getting all that stuff done. That was a lot of work to get through, and we're still not through all the downtown stuff. But you can see the progress that has happened. So I feel from a fire marshal point of view, it's very nice to be able to make a phone call, have somebody show up within a few minutes, or come together and work through it. Now conversely, through fire inspections, we broke records last year, and we still didn't get them all done, because we didn't have enough time in the day to do them. And that's the other thing too. A lot of times you're just driving down the street, you see something, and you're like, I don't remember that. And then you go back, you start doing some research and realize that they just popped up and started opening. We had a restaurant open, it was in business for 3 weeks, and nobody knew they were there. And people put it on Facebook, and we rolled up there and went, what's going on here? We were able to take care of that. We had an illegal adult entertainment facility that opened up and had a door through another restaurant, and that was shut down within 4 days of it, 5 days of it. So again, it's because of working with the building code and with the fire code simultaneously, we're able to do that. So just be careful of what you're trying to accomplish by this. There's a lot more to it, and I have also heard the same thing that the mayor said. I've had the same thing. I've had people complain about it, and I've had other guys, this last gentleman I talked to said, man, he goes, you need to go up to this town and this town and this town and start talking to them about how to get things done. They liked being able to get in the email chain and get all their questions answered, and that was nice. It's just a matter of, before they would pick and choose which department they would show enough information to get the pot stirred, and then try to play each other off each other, and we said we're done with that. So,
Can you give us a list of those towns?
of those what?
Those cities that you're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Then some of them were pretty close too, so, absolutely. Okay, thank you.
And Chief, I heard lots of great things about you coming alongside the building department, getting in there, getting things accomplished. I genuinely think you were the biggest cause for how well this is going.
Well, and again, it's the whole thing of trying to focus and trying to just get everybody together, because, you know, when you have 5 meetings with one person, it's very difficult. When you try to hyper-focus and get everything together and get all information together, and that's what was working so well together.
Good.
And that was everything, and when I would throw out an email, it was to everybody, law, planning, zoning, everybody, and say, hey, what's going on here? And we got the information relatively quickly, and it was nice having that, so.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is anybody else on council? Mr. Heidick, sorry, I was looking this way. Mr. Harris?
Thank you. I just have one final thing. Dr. Shreve, since you're still at the podium there, for the longest time, we've had inspector, and I understand everybody's points of view from the administration. I get all that. But what I seen in the past few years, I couldn't put my finger on when it started, but when I first got on, we had inspectors that had been working for us 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And suddenly, it seems like the building department, within the past couple of years, has been thrust into chaos of turnover, this and that. And I do understand that some people leave for better jobs, for move closer to cities. But we had one that moved to a different department and took a pay cut just to move out of that department. What has happened in the past 2 years that has caused such a massive turnover? People don't stay in jobs for 20 years and just leave for a better paying job. People have roots in that. If you're there 20 years, unless you're moving out of state, I mean, but just from my view, I have never seen a department have such turnover in 2 years. And it seems like it's consistent. So one of the reasons I brought this up is what's happened that has caused such disarray and such chaos that, to Councilor Harris's point, there have been problems with people taking forever. To Councilor Gerhardt's point, taking with these electric permits. It never used to be like this. What's changed? What's caused this kind of, and just absolute chaos in the past couple of years? Where can we pinpoint what's gone wrong?
So, I'm constantly looking at that department and trying to figure some of that out myself. We have brought on a lot of new employees that have gained a new skill set. So you have to remember too, so we're hiring property maintenance inspectors that maybe have never, opened a code book or worked in that atmosphere or that setting. So we're giving them a skill set that they are then taking that skill set, and either you like it and you like going out. If your property is in disarray and I have to come tell you got to clean up your property, or I'm going to cite you to court, and I'm going to do this and that takes a certain type of person. Mm-hmm. Just like, Mr. Harris was a police officer for several years. It takes a certain type of person to do that job. They are enforcing the laws just in a different aspect. So some of them, you know, can't handle that. Some of them have come in, they've done it for a year and a half, and they said, you know what, this just isn't for me. You know, I need to get out of here while I can. I don't like sitting in front of the court, in front of a jury, in front of the people that I'm dragging to court for this. So a lot of it is just trying to find that certain type of person. And the other thing is so I mean, I'm pretty sure I have a grasp of the employee you're talking about, and I do know that they had that opportunity presented to them several years prior to them walking out. It didn't work out at that point in time because the opportunity was given to somebody that worked for that particular community, and she had sat with that in her back pocket for a while. So I think that it was an opportunity that they were really wanting to take prior to actually leaving. So I respected the fact that they had so many years of service, and I mean, and you celebrate that because they were a good employee for so long. But I can't make them stay when they find an opportunity that they really want to go after. So, but again, I'm looking at ways to better that department and to keep improving and to try to finally retain some employees. So I mean, again, this suggestion about virtual inspections, I looked it up while Chief Palachek was OpenGov, so who does our budget. They're ones that offer software. So I mean, I can talk to Jeremy and we can get a price and see what it would cost to do virtual inspections. I don't know that we have enough inspections to make it worth, you know, investing in a platform like that.
I agree.
You know, because I mean, we're talking costs and, you know, revenues, and if I can't generate enough revenue by doing virtual inspections to cover the cost of the software, that's probably not in our best interest. I do, like I said, like the idea of it by all means, but so to your point though, Councilor Heidick, I mean, I can't pinpoint it myself, but I'm constantly trying to improve and retain employees.
Thank you.
Can I respond to that? So there's many reasons why people leave, right? And we could sit here and go back and forth on why each individual person left. What I will tell you, as Mr. Shreve said, we do perform exit interviews, HR does, and then Ms. Eisman comes to us and says, hey, this is the stuff, the feedback I got, right? And some of it is, if there's only so many steps in this department, I'm topped out here. There's nowhere else for me to go. So some employees may go to another department because there's more steps. So some of the feedback came back recently was, if there was more training opportunities and more steps to grow, you know, you're gonna make more money, but if there's more steps than, you know, what we have now, you know, I may have stayed. So we're looking at that. Obviously, these are bargaining unit positions, so that all have to be put into the contract and negotiated, but we're looking at that. How can we make it worthwhile because we want someone to stay for 20, 30 years, make it a career, but if we want to train them and we want them to grow in that position, there's got to be some steps, right? And so there's got to be some reward. If they're topped out after, you know, just a few years, you know, what's the motivation, right? So we're looking at all of these things.
Has leadership within the building department been questioned on this kind of turnover?
Yeah.
And what?
I'm not gonna discuss details
this
of-
could go into a different
Yeah.
place there, but that's what I'm getting at as well. I'm just not sure what's happening in the department.
But, you know, hey, to be fair, and we talk about all these things, right? But to be fair, I could name people who have left the planning department, people who have left the police department, people who have left the fire department, people who have left the street department. So, you know, building department has been a lot more visible with changeover, but we could talk all day about these things.
Thank you.
We can't talk all evening, though, so I would like to move on. Mr. Harris, can you make our final statement?
One quick question. You said there was 2 property maintenance inspectors overseeing Omni-Fiber?
Yes.
Or is Omni-Fiber doing that much work that it takes 2
Well,
inspectors?
so that they are sharing, they share the duties. So what happens, you know, our property maintenance has zones. So if one of them, so Matt and Dustin are our 2 that are overseeing. So if Matt's busy, Matt's in court, Matt's doing this, Matt's doing that, Dustin's, you know, the one that gets sent out to Omni-Fiber. vice versa, if Dustin's busy. So that's why, so there's two of them that we're working with to oversee. Now, does two of them have to do it? No, probably not. But if I've got one of them focusing on that, they're gonna get pulled off of some of their daily duties. So those are the things that we're trying to avoid. I'm trying to make sure that they have time to also do everything else that we require.
I just asked because I know we had one person that took care of sidewalks, gas line, all that stuff.
Well,
And that's why I was asking, why do we have two employees assigned to Omni Fiber?
Well, and I mean, I'm assuming you're referring to our part-time construction inspector. When Charlie Reese came back, he was
Well, even, yeah, before
he
that.
was part-time, and that was his
But
sole
even-
focus. So the other thing,
Before
so
that, though,
before that, so in the nice months, the warm months, if you'd have looked at Charlie's production for property maintenance, it was down here because he was so busy out. So he wasn't getting any of the property maintenance stuff done. So now we're trying to do that balancing act so that we can get as much out of them as we can, so that they focus on their area and can still, tag along and make sure that Omni Fiber's, living up to our expectation. So,
Thank you.
yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Top of
Where you
page 9, we're gonna just put a big X through that big green area, because it became confusing. It's an alternate thing. I'm hopping back to 8 for just a second. One of the commission's suggestions was adding qualifications to the Director of Public Service. So keeping that in mind, that will help you understand my next recommendations. And this might be Mr. Shreve coming back up. Currently, our city engineer is appointed by the mayor. But if we're adding all these qualifiers to our public service director, I think he should be the one who appoints our city engineer. Todd, I'm sorry, does my committee have anything to say about that?
I was gonna ask Todd.
Okay. Does council have any questions or thoughts on that? Does
Come back up there.
Does Mr. Shreve, I mean, you're pretty loud, so the public can probably hear you without a microphone, but,
Actually, you should just stay for the next
So,
one,
I mean,
too.
so that's one of those things where, so my position is appointed by the mayor.
Right.
So the mayor and I are gonna sit down. It's not like I'm gonna, hide over here in my office and pick an engineer without conferring with the mayor.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that it's a joint effort regardless of who's ultimately responsible. I feel like as an elected official does more appointments than somebody that is appointed by an elected official. But I mean, again,
but we don't have any, this is where I remind everybody, we're talking titles. I'm not talking about you or you specifically. Our mayor doesn't have qualifiers. They don't have to have a degree in engineering. They don't have to have a degree knowing this. They don't have to have 5 years. They could come from Burger King, which would be great. Everybody from Burger King should apply. But if you have all that, the degrees and the experience, wouldn't your position be who should be picking the engineer and the water department and the building commissioner? And this might just be because I'm speaking from private sector. I'm not public sector. So maybe this is where I just don't know how appointments should work.
I mean, with these director-level positions, you've got the charter that outlines some things, but you've got job descriptions. So whoever appoints the person, that person has to meet these job description qualifiers. So I believe in the ORC, there's certain appointments by the mayor allowed, something of that nature.
There is in terms of administrative assistants, that is in ORC.
Okay, but the engineer and some other positions are strictly unique to the city through their charter?
Correct, because many cities don't have any of these positions.
So does it matter? Would it matter if the service director was able to hire those people? Because they're working under him, or they're working under that role.
You would assume that the way it's functioning now, that the mayor would hire someone with input from the service director and HR.
Right.
Versus just going out and appointing someone, which they could do, but if you do the reverse, reverse? Is the service director just going to go appoint someone without conferring with HR or the mayor?
I would hope not. That would lack a lot
I
of
would
wisdom.
hope not, but that's what you would set this up to do.
Okay. Because to me, let's say you had a bad building commissioner. Well, you've appointed them, but that person is their boss, right?
Yes.
So with that, are you able to then deal with somebody that's appointed by a different person? If he's not doing his job, he's your report, not yours. I mean, technically, everybody is.
Right.
You're the Grand Pumbaa, but I think it should fall under you because you're the director of it.
Don't be scared, he ain't gonna fire you.
Well, I'm saying, one does the other, because again, I mean, you have to have a minimum set of qualifications in order to be a CBO.
Right.
You know, I can't say, hey, mommy, you're gonna be my CBO. So, I mean, again, I do think that it's going to be a joint effort in anyone that we hire. And I mean, regardless, you're going to be at times put in charge of employees that you don't have control over hiring.
I just think it would make more sense. But Mrs. Miller, I see you joined us.
Couple things. I believe, and I could have gotten your request wrong, but I believe that you asked that they all be classified positions.
That part
Okay.
is where I'm just saying, I
Okay,
think that,
but let me
Yes.
explain why I said that. That's what I believe you asked, so that's what I did. And to be clear, the Director of Public Safety appoints all the classified employees under the Director of Public Safety. So if you chose for them to be classified employees, the people that you asked me to change, they would be appointed by the service director in the same way that the safety director appoints all the classified employees under the purview of the safety director. So the chiefs, the officers, the firefighters, all the promotions, those are all classified employees that the safety director is responsible for appointing. If I got what you asked correctly and you made them classified, it would be similar to the safety director.
but it would be the
But if
service
you meant
director.
unclassified, and I didn't hear that correctly or read what you asked me to do, then that would be different. So, for example, Ms. Zeisman has a administrative assistant. She's an unclassified employee. So the safety director does appoint an unclassified employee.
Right.
But the classified employees under her purview are all appointed by her.
Isn't that what I'm asking for with
If
Mr.,
you,
with the
yes, I'm
service
just
director?
making
Yeah.
sure you asked me to make them all classified. If you did, then it would be consistent. If you are
Correct.
not wanting them to be classified, then it would be inconsistent. And I guess I should just say right now, does everyone here, I'm just asking, understand what classified means? And you can say no because a lot of people don't. Okay, I expect no phone calls this week asking me what the difference is. All right.
Okay.
And, you know, if I can address, without addressing the elephant in the room, from what I'm perceiving, my perception, if, I don't want council to make a decision that may go to voters who may not be watching tonight or be watching any of these things, these proceedings, because of the dislike or hearing complaints about a single employee. If decisions are made that drastically change things because of one employee, and again, this is my perception of what's been going on, that changes things, and that employee is going to come and go and all these things, and you could really set up some things long-term that are not good. So just be cautious as you discuss these things and take votes and all that, because, you know, if you want to talk more, we can. It's just, you know, the administration, this side, the executive branch, whatever you want to call it, they run the operations. And if you guys want to talk more about a singular employee or you want to talk about a singular department, we definitely can have those conversations. But decisions made here have long-term effects. I just want everyone to be cognizant of that.
And I think they need to be for, if it's a good or a bad employee. This was merely being brought up because of the added qualifiers for the Director of Public Service. That then put them in the best position to get those next 3 people that they're already over, have them picking them.
I mean, we're going to question this, so just hypothetical, right? That's
Yeah.
how it works. It's not a precursor for anything. And then the service director leaves, or is no longer employed, and if that position's unfilled, does the mayor who does not appoint that engineer spot, what happens there if they don't get along? Now you have to wait for a new service director to come in, to be appointed, to let go. Just, again, hypothetical, right? Hypothetical. So just don't, it doesn't have, no answer, it's tonight, just point it out.
Okay. Any other thoughts, or can we talk about that? Okay. Now I believe we're on to page 10. So, C, and then the qualifiers of C, is an addition basically to the role of what I would like to see happen under the Director of Public Safety. I have asked for a guest to come speak tonight about this. If I could have Mr. Connor come up. And Mr. Connor, we're talking about the Public Information Officer, basically, and how that could fall under the Director of Public Safety.
My name is Dave Connor. I'm a retired firefighter paramedic with the city of Barberton. I was also a member of the Barberton Police Department's SWAT unit, the Southwest Summit County SWAT unit, as a tactical medic and medic team leader. I was also a member of the Union Safety Committee, Firefighters Union Safety Committee, and a shift rep. Obviously, some of the issues with the Department of Public Safety, and specifically the PIO part you're talking about, as we have heard here tonight, as that I have witnessed in my 28-year career and over the last 5 years as a citizen, there is a huge issue with lack of proper communications. We see it day to day. We see it with between departments, but especially from the citizens to the administration in the city, lots of communication problems. In the 28 years I was a firefighter medic, the lack of communications in large-scale emergencies was crippling at times. The storm on Friday should be a big wake-up call. Again, massive lack of proper communications. In a catastrophic event, that can be deadly. I have witnessed this in large events I've been involved in. Back to our community, having the city needs a communications director, period. Now, how that comes about, I'll be honest with you, the city's emergency operation plan actually kind of has that in there. How many here has seen the city's emergency operation plan? Do you understand it? Have you looked over all of it? You all should. Everybody in this room should be familiar with the city's operation plan, because we're all supposed to be a part of it. That's for another debate. But under this plan, there is a section under public information. It's Annex D. And in that annex is the Joint Information Center, the JIT, that the plan states has already been identified here within this building, but also the city's public information officer. Now, if I understand it right, this plan is already in motion, or it's already been approved. But in the plan, it literally says there's a city public information officer, and it literally spells out its organization, assignment, and responsibilities. So using that as a format, and it falls under the Department of Public Safety. Mm-hmm. So that plan already spells out that the PIO, Public Information Officer, falls under Department of Public Safety, and that, that obviously is for emergencies, disaster management, things like that. But an emergency operation plan doesn't just cover emergencies and disasters, it covers events. It covers day-to-day operations that may occur within the city, from small emergencies and events to very large ones. So this, you could spin up this PIO and literally have your guidelines right here. That PIO would basically be a conduit. In my opinion, even though it's in the emergency operation plan, falls under the Department of Public Safety, it literally should be the mayor's mouthpiece, per se. His administration needs a person that can collect information, accurate, timely information, for whatever may be needed, from the construction to all the issues that you've been addressing here today. And then that person, whether it's a person or they have a team, can disseminate that information to the community, to we the people. Internally, if there are issues, like within the city government, within the departments, again, that PIO can assist the mayor, his representatives, in getting, again, timely, accurate information. Could, if any kind of improper information or if social media ran wild, you could kind of head that off. That's, even within the emergency operation plan, that is the job of the PIO. Because right now, I'll be honest with you, I get most of my information from events from social media. Herald Social, all those. Probably 90% of it. I don't like it, but that's kind of the way it is right now. And that, I'm not saying that's not a fault of anything, right? That's not uncommon in a lot of communities. Having to, I mean, if we literally take the emergency operation plan and do what we're supposed to with it and implement it properly, it will alleviate a lot of problems. So that's my take on the PIO.
Thank you. So Mr. Connor and I met, he's actually in the best ward in Barberton.
Ward 5?
Ward 5. But he had reached out to me the morning after, I believe, the refugee post had been made through the schools, and I had no clue what he was talking about. And I'm telling my resident, could you please send me whatever you're talking about, because I've never heard of this. So that was kind of just how, we met. And I thought of this, Jen, you had brought up Mrs. Hager, you had brought up some points last year, with the oil spill. It waited till it was 24 hours deep on social media and in an uproar before anybody talked about it. Or we had a home blow up in our ward, and I was reading that there was a naked culprit on the, it just got crazy on social media.
Where there was, there was an intentional house explosion.
Yeah, and now we had people in fear.
Today, very little information. A lot of people in our community are very scared. When you have somebody blow up a house, that's pretty serious. So there are people still scared. Don't know. There's a lot of fear right now in our neighborhoods because of that. This PIO could put out timely information. Now, this Chief Polachek has in the past and still does. The police department puts out information from their standpoints and from what they have, their own PIOs. But those two really should go through a central kind of collection system, the PIO, so that the city's putting out everything that should be. A coordinated information to the public. And then and again, obviously in something serious with investigations, you can't put out a lot of information initially, but you could say, hey, we have this under control. There is a suspect, if there is one, we just to let people know that we're handling it, and to you're safe. We believe that there's no other further action going to take place. You're not in any further danger. Just more information that's not going to mess up any kind of investigation is very pertinent. When it comes to storms, when it comes to any type of storm, much more information needs put out there. It literally spells it out in the emergency operation plan. Again, what's going on at the moment. And that PIO would have all the means to disseminate that information. Nixl's not used near enough. I get more information from Norton than I do from Barberton. That definitely needs changed. Talking about, it was brought up about what citizens need to do, who they need to communicate to. They need to know that, hey, All these down power lines, all this bad stuff that's happening, the safety of it, don't go near it. Who do you call? Is it down? Oh, the other thing too is what people don't understand, and to this day, and I still involved in emergency management planning with my job at the museum at Acton County Airport. People don't understand in a large-scale disaster emergency that if you're not injured, you're upright and breathing, and your home is fairly intact, you're not special. And that's infuriating. It's like, wait a minute, I have this problem. Well, there's only so many first responders. And in a lot, like Friday night, our first responders were very overwhelmed. Okay, in a much more major one, like what happened in Kentucky, or if a tornado ever struck this town, you know who the first responders are going to be? In our neighborhoods, everybody in this room. We are going to be doing rescue work. We're going to be helping our neighbors. That's why, moving forward, that emergency operation plan, every single ward needs citizens involved in that. I responded down to Western North Carolina immediately after the hurricane hit. 90% of all aid at that point was by citizen groups, from mountain folks and teams like ours that went down there. That's exactly what will happen here. Because in a widespread emergency or disaster, we're not getting help. There's not going to be Norton or Akron or somebody helping because they're going to be busy doing their own thing. So again, this PIO is very vital. It's going to help, I believe, you. And again, you would work really close with that person. And the same with everybody in this room.
Thank you. Does my committee have any questions for Mr.
Oh,
Connor?
no, I just have comments.
Oh, just comments.
Yes, I don't have any questions.
Does my
But
committee have any
Does
comments?
that make sense? Does what I say
Yes.
make
Yes.
sense? That's what's
Yes.
important.
Go ahead,
To the
Mrs. Beck.
citizens too, does that make sense?
I was waiting.
She'll go, then we'll go.
Excuse me. I had a phone call right before I left the house asking for exactly this. So funny you should say that. We are talking about this tonight. While we were doing our FEMA training, this also popped into my head to have this as well. But also what you said about if there's a large disaster, we are going to be the ones. I also thought about that while we were doing that long FEMA training thing.
Yeah.
So, I was kind of grateful to have the that outline that we have. I forgot what it's called now, but
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I love
Because
this very much.
we literally, we're like 19 years behind schedule. We should have been fully prepared in the emergency operation plan, not only developed, but trained on, changes made, after action reviews, improvement plans, all kinds of NIM stuff that I'm not going to get into right now. That was supposed to be done in 2006. Our plan as it is, I believe, was right around 2020. And as far as I know, it's not been trained on whatsoever.
Okay.
This year, we should have been doing a full-scale exercise on all of the training we did the previous 4 years. Tabletops, functional exercises, drills, everything. So while we have a plan, we don't know how to work it. It's sitting in a computer file somewhere or on somebody's shelf.
Mr. Heidick?
Okay. I have 2 comments on this one. Excuse me. First off, when I was first elected, within 2 weeks, I was in the mayor's office, and we had discussed creating a position for communications director. Also, about 3 months later, when we were probably going to start thinking of it, COVID hit and pretty much destroyed all conversations about pretty much damn near anything. I like the idea of this. I don't think it should be in a charter, because I think we can create that position through ordinance. The mayor has researched a communications director and has expressed interest in having one. The position doesn't exist. The only fear I have of it being in the charter, especially with this language, anytime we want to change something, we'd have to go to the voters. If we create the position through ordinance, we can change with the times. In 10 years, we don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. In 10 years, there may not be a city website. There may be a new weird technology that we don't even know of right now, but it still says it in our charter.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's a
I
good
think
point.
this is a fantastic thing, and I think it should be done through ordinance, not the charter, just so we have the ability to adapt, because what did the Charter Review Commission just have to do? See how we can adapt to times.
Right.
So I think that being able to create things through ordinance would allow us to adapt faster than having to go to the ballot every single time something has to be updated.
Can
think
you
that's a good
completely
thought.
take it, I mean, so we're on the right track, but can you completely take it out of this and put it in the mayor's hands? Meaning a mayor. It's basically making it an appointed position.
I believe so.
I'm just throwing that out there.
Because
it should, to me, it should be its own standalone position, well, maybe not standalone position, but it should fall, this specific PIO, police, fire have one, but this specific city PIO or communications director really should be aligned with the mayor. Mr. Mayor.
And that's why I fully believe that by ordinance.
So this PIO, this communications director, in my opinion, it should be in line with your office. This should be the mayor's communications director, the city's communications director, and everything gets coordinated through that, so maybe that person fall under your office, your purview.
And scoring the jobs and all that, that's how, it would be so much easier if this was created under ordinance than embedded.
Right,
Putting
that makes
this
sense.
in ordinance, so it is easier to change. It's not, because this could be, whatever's approved by city council could fail at the ballot box, right? A lot easier, a lot quicker to put it in an ordinance. And as Councilman Heiding said, we have looked at this numerous times. I can't recall if we have a job description put together, but I know that a lot of research has been done on that. We do communicate with the police, PIO, and fire. We do communicate very well internally, but I get Mr. Connor's sentiment here. So, we could, I want to make sure, this is another example, I want to make sure that you have to point back to this position too. So there's going to be a cost, the expense for the wages, the salary. I want to make sure it's sustainable, right? Running a city based off of income tax is the worst business model there ever is, right? So you want to make sure everything is sustainable. There's things by law we have to, by ORC, we have to provide to the residents, right? Nothing against fire, but the ORC says you have to provide a fire department, not EMS. Contractually, the fire department does our EMS. You have to provide police protection. So there's a lot of things we have to provide. I want to make sure those are sustainable. So we can continue to talk about, and we can start moving forward with creating that position. But I believe, with you, that it should be an ordinance, not the charter.
And to be clear, government itself is a bad business model, so it's not relegated to just departments.
But you just can't change the widget, and you can't charge whatever you want for it.
But get creative with this position. So this is a kind of a wide open position per se. So try to get creative amongst council, government, everybody.
Yeah,
Thank you,
I
sir.
agree with you, Mr. Heidick, on that being an ordinance. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe we're on,
Chair?
oh, I'm so sorry.
I apologize, this has nothing to do with the charter review, but someone had mentioned there is mulch makers accepts all natural debris. So I know that you weren't so much.
Doesn't
It
say.
says, check out our guidelines at mulchmakers.net.
Just the guidelines.
I've lost all control,
Yeah.
President.
You would.
Page 12. Mr. Heidick, can you tell us more about that?
I don't want a law director that's been sanctioned by the Ohio Supreme Court for violations.
Seems legit. Is there a time frame on that? And how, I think Mrs. Beck can ask this question better.
So I did have a question about this. So would you be okay with adding within the last 5 years, not having violations? However, if you have a sanction, like how bad could that be? Because I'm running off of, like, if I were to get a fair housing violation, it could be I messed up my words in my description
Yeah,
of a
that's
house.
not what happens.
Yeah, exactly. So I wasn't sure if that's what it was.
No, it takes a lot to be sanctioned as a
Okay.
lawyer.
Then never mind.
You can get fined for a CLE miss, like if you need 24 and you had 23, you just get a fine.
Okay.
But when you're talking about sanctions, you've worked very hard
Okay.
to get that.
Cool, then never mind.
Okay. All right. Any any thoughts on that or questions? Okay, I didn't think so. Page 14. So, again, I would like to fall back on newness and being more from a private sector, but when I see how we have it outlined currently, that if I glance back, sorry, there's too many papers in this, how we have our safety director, and then they're over the chief of police and the chief of fire, that makes sense. How they are then also the HR department does not make sense to me. To me, that should be a completely different role, because if you were a police or fireman and you had an issue, you're going to have to go to your chief who was appointed by the safety director. So is that really going to be an advocate for you with an issue? So I know that it was mentioned that this has been always put together, but this just doesn't make sense to me to be together. So that's why I have it here for us to talk about. Does my committee have any? Mrs.
So
Miller.
just to be clear, every employee under the safety director, except the administrative assistant, is a classified employee. And, well, actually, the chiefs are classified employees. Every other person is in a bargaining unit. So, in all likelihood, except for like a question about insurance coverage, how do I get them to pay my dentist? Concerns, employment concerns would be addressed through their union.
Okay.
And Dave could tell you more about that, but I think I've hit that right, Dave.
So when you say HR, you said chiefs. You mean HR in the safety department? Because like the first-
No, she has asked a draft to separate HR from safety. And her concern, which I understand, is that employees, like a firefighter or a police officer who are under safety, wouldn't go to the HR director if they had an employment issue. And I was just saying that employment issues are handled by their union reps. The only other issue that an HR director could handle for safety forces, as I've said, is like medical coverage or things like that. And I'm talking about like, I can't go to this dentist. Now, if they had a bargaining unit issue with their health insurance, like if they bargained for a particular thing and it's not happening, they would then go back to their bargaining unit. They would not be, HR would not be addressing that.
But there should not be a safety department and an HR together. One person, that's a conflict of interest on a massive scale.
That's what we currently have, and that's why I'm asking to separate it.
It should be separate.
That is definitely Mr. Connor's opinion. I'm just saying that human resource concerns that aren't covered in the bargaining would be the only ones they would do, but that's hours of work, vacation, how safety concerns in their work life, all of that is in their bargaining unit agreement.
Okay.
May I comment?
Mr. Harris?
I want to, so if Chief Polachek has an issue with the safety director, okay, the next person is HR, who is also the safety director.
Well, again, both chiefs are classified employees. Now, if it's a, I don't know what, if it's a term and condition of employment, but while the safety director definitely appoints them under the charter, all employees are on, except for employees under each elected official, are all employees of the city, and the mayor ultimately has authority over that.
So if a city employee, specifically a firefighter.
Can you come back up to the microphone, Mr. Connor? Thank you.
So everybody can hear you.
Yeah, we had
Please.
complaints for people couldn't hear last week.
This is personal. I'll tell you right now. So, the last 5 years of my firefighter career, the previous safety director made my life a living hell, and my family's. So, very, very unprofessional conduct. She engaged in bullying, discrimination, sending another high-ranking fire official to threaten me and my family so that I would keep my mouth shut. And that was the term used, you will keep your mouth shut about the ongoing opioid epidemic that no one knew about at the time. People were dying. It wasn't even, this was 2014 and no one hardly knew about it. And she sent a high-ranking fire official, he took me aside, pointed right in my face and said, "Shut your mouth. It is none of your business." And when I said people were dying, it is my business, the next comment was they deserve it. That fire official said the safety director wants to hear nothing more about this. End it now or else. After that, I contacted a member of law enforcement, several members. One is a member of this council. I was warned numerous times over the coming years, watch your back. My family was also incorporated into some of that as threatening. So I had a meeting with my family. I have a son that's a Norton police officer, another son that's a combat veteran from Afghanistan. And we ramped up our situational awareness. And I basically said, you come after us, you will have a war. Because we will defend ourselves with every level of the Constitution of this country and this state. And this went on. I was bullied, threats of disciplinary action for telling the truth, that the city was not prepared for many emergencies that we could face, and I would bring those out. I was called into the office. This is witnessed, this is documented. She said that I cannot say these things. I said, the city's not prepared. First responders aren't prepared. People could die. She was very aggressive. Again, pointing at my face, said that I was a disgrace to my uniform, and again, told me that I needed to shut my mouth. So, and there were more. There were others. There were other things that happened. So, because she is the safety director and the human resource director, who do I file a complaint with? So, of course, we talked with my union representatives, the union committee. So we went to our union attorney, who's a corporate attorney, very distinguished attorney up in Cleveland. We had a meeting. She was very well aware of the safety director's past with another community. She said, this is a very bad person. And I was going to file I did file a formal written complaint listing all the grievances. And she looked at that and she sat down and advised me and my union reps that you could go forward with this, but because you don't have a human resources director that you could do, that was a standalone HR department, you would have to take this to the mayor, which would not be a really good idea, and they'll make your life a living hell the rest of your career. They could do that because they're government. As a employee of the city of Barberton, you do not have the same constitutional rights completely as a citizen. I was kind of surprised about that, but even our attorney was like, yeah, you kind of don't. You lose some of those rights. Now, you don't have a right to be bullied. You don't have a right to have, criminal acts brought against you, but it's government, and government has power, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So that's what I faced for 5 years. So I don't want to see other city employees. Now, I do not know the current safety director. This has nothing to do with her, but we don't want future employees, current or future employees, to face that same kind of issue. The HR should be a standalone. It should not be under any department. Because if let's say the HR director is under safety, well, then they're beholden to the safety director. If they're under service, they're beholden to the service director. The employees have to be able to go to an HR person in private and say, hey, this is happening to me. This is very egregious and we can't have this happen. And that HR director has the ability to handle that appropriately without any conflict of interest or any issues or pressure from department heads or anybody else within the city. Now, again, I guess it's up to you, Mayor, how that HR person can fit in. Maybe it should be right with the mayor. That's, again, how you would work that out. But there has to be a way that this doesn't happen again. And I know some retired firefighters who went through some really bad stuff. I know several current safety force members who had some, under that past safety director, had some really bad stuff. Mental health is another issue. It has affected the mental health of first responders. Mine, it did big time. And it has others. police officers have a very stressful job. We see things, even in this town, that are horrific, that I cannot even begin to explain. The last 5 to 10 years of my career were unreal. The amount of death and destruction that we witnessed. And even I know the last 5 years, a lot of stuff's been happening. Our first responders have to have an avenue that if things are happening, they know that somebody has their back. This is also a mental health issue. If you know that you're going out there day after day and you got to worry about somebody higher up stabbing you in the back, literally, sometimes, that's bad. So, again, you cannot let that stuff go on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Chair. Given the light of certain situations just heard and looking at this proposal here, how are they hired? It doesn't say,
It does. In the first, it said it's a classified position.
It's hard to read the green highlight, I'm
Listen,
sorry.
I didn't pick the green colors.
I'm sorry.
I just picked colors. I'm sorry.
I noticed his eyes adjusting. It's just because it's in green, it might be harder.
Another color.
withdrawing my question there.
So it says classified.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Anyone else? Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, again, I'm not going to sit here and try to address accusations or anything of that nature. Anyone who is in a bargaining unit has a union rep. They have a department head or chief. They have if the HR director is not doing their job, they have me they can always come to. And I tell everyone, I tell council, my door is always open. That's not some cute message. It's the truth. You also have a separately elected law director. So there's avenues. The mix of safety director and HR director was done before me. It was to save money. I wasn't involved in those conversations. I don't think that has to be in the charter. That can be done outside of the charter. What I would like to see in the charter, and I may mess this section up, but I believe the charter says HR is more of like a part-time position and safety director is more of a full-time position. HR has grown, and I don't know the exact words.
I think it just says you can have another job in the city.
Okay.
I don't think either give a time
Maybe
amount.
that's kind of how the,
Just to be clear, that may have another job. That was the Charter Commission added that language because of the history. So that's why that language is not in the charter at all
Gotcha.
now. That was the proposal of the Charter Commission, because they're review commission, because they're trying to put in what is currently occurring because they felt like that was important. And I agree that they really felt strongly about an HR department, but weren't exactly sure how to put that out there. So that was their the way they did it. That's a better word, but I can't.
Compromise?
so I'm sorry, so the wording is can have another job?
May, it says May, yep.
May have another position within the
I mean,
city.
HR has changed in the last 10 years, let alone the last 20 years, right? It's kind of become its own animal. So, I mean, that's the real need, being compliant with all the different,
I would envision HR being a full-time position, and I would envision your public safety director being part-time.
That's the way to do it, right?
yeah. And so you have two chiefs, and then they've got their
Just trying to help you.
Like, do we need a bathroom break?
I was the first HR director in the city before I left and took a job at the county. And that was how it was then. I was full-time, I had an administrative assistant, and Leon Ricks was the part-time safety director. So
Okay.
that has happened, but then it didn't happen anymore. So I wasn't here, I obviously had left, so I don't know what happened after that.
But you recall personnel?
Nope,
was it
human
resources?
resources and labor relations. So, and I was full-time, then I left. And then I think Randy was still the mayor, Mayor Hart was still there, and I'm not sure, I wasn't here, so I don't know how that was handled.
He combined Leon Rick's job with HR. He took, because they were both safe, and that's where that started. Leon Ricks was the first HR/safety director.
So, Mr. Heidi, sorry, I know I'm coming to you, Mrs. Beck. Instead of the public information person being a separate person, couldn't that just be a role under the public safety director? Then we're not creating a new, I like keeping it out of the charter, but instead of making it a whole nother person, it's just what we are expecting from a public safety director.
Are you suggesting not doing this charter amendment and creating the position through ordinance and changing job descriptions? I'm on board with that.
Because it keeps it out of, then we can make the changes more fluidly as
And
the
as
world
they just
changes.
said, it was two positions, one was full-time, one was part-time, suddenly one was, it switched and then they got combined. I don't think there's any harm in splitting them again and redefining. But do it through ordinance and not through here.
Okay, Mrs. Beck, thank you.
I was going to ask you a different question, but I'll say what I wanted to say.
Okay.
I was like, yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
But no, I think what you were just saying a moment ago underscores how this really is needed, either charter or ordinance, it doesn't matter. But he just underscored all of the ways the city failed him in his job. He literally could not do anything about it. And that he underscored the whole problem.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming in tonight.
Thank you. Is there any other talk on that? Okay. We are on page 15, and this is the I'm sorry, what? Council members and the president of council being limited to 3 consecutive terms. Does my committee have anything to say about that? Does the rest of council? Does the gallery? Okay, thank you. So 21, the first part, I feel like we've talked at length about the building department and all that. So we're going to go down to a manager of economic development. The director of economic development shall have a bachelor's degree. Okay. And they would be falling under the planning commission. So the planning commission would then have the power to appoint the planning director and an economic development manager. So this is adding a role again. But there should be a great return of investment because this person is bringing in businesses actively. So do we have conversation from my committee about that role? Yes, Mrs. Beck?
Wouldn't we also do this under ordinance though, rather than charter?
Probably. It's just that the planning director's there, so.
Right. I don't have any problems with it, but it seems like we want to add a lot of positions. That's going to be costly. I'm starting to worry about where's this money going to come from. I love it. I want it.
Yeah, this role specifically would ultimately be paying for themselves because they're selling the city. They're bringing in people.
That's one way to look at it.
It's the simplest way I could define it, versus, other roles that just we need to have, so. But, yeah, I think it could be an ordinance also. Oh, Mr. Best.
Okay. We have talked about this in the past.
Yes.
Come down to finances. Some of the money comes out of CDBG money. Just so you know, when I started commission, we got over $1.7 million a year. We're down to a little over 600,000. And rumor on the street is going to drop significantly. So you guys are talking about these 3 jobs we're creating. The benefits, we're probably looking at $300,000.
Yeah.
Where are you going to get this money?
And on this one, we do have some from Insight not being here, so we would have the start of a salary for this role. Did we already spend that?
No, but $50,000 that you'd be paying for 3 people is less than half of what you're going to pay for 1 person.
I said a start of. Thank you, though. Mr. Moore?
Yeah, just on that with the ordinances, that is a great way to make the process easier. However, the community being able to vote on these new positions. It's our tax dollars here, so I think the community should be able to implement the positions if they think they're important enough for the community, since we're going to be paying for them. Thank you.
It's a great point. Thank you. Mr. Heidick?
Thank you, Chair. Let me see where did my place go on this one? I don't think,
21.
We were on
no,
21.
I'm trying to see where, something else here. Instead of this position being here, could it just as easily go under B and be, currently, I'm gonna use the Parks Commission, they appoint a director and can appoint an assistant director. To Commissioner Best's point,
Yeah.
the money wasn't there. Under powers and duties of the commission for the planning commission, it says the commission shall appoint and provide for the duties of a director of city planning who serves at the pleasure of the commission. What if it was there and gives them the option to be able to, instead of embedding it here? That way, in certain times, they can fill it instead of mandatory filling it.
I like
and
that.
Crossing over and
That goes back to like the development plan. We tried to get that, starting with Randy Hart, and it took Mayor Judge to come up with the funds for that. You know how long that's taken, so the money is really tight. So, yeah, we've talked about an economic development, talked with the mayor about it. We'd love to create a position, but it comes down to the money. So we have to get with HR and determine civil service, how much, it would be, and then we can get back and let you know. And come to you next year and say, yeah, I need $70,000, $80,000.
which is where I
We
think
can go
that
there.
it would be better served under Section B,
Okay.
that the planning commission would be responsible for that.
Yeah, because I wanted them under the planning commission, so I think that makes the most sense.
Right.
Yeah. Now, would you keep it as a charter, or would you make it an ordinance?
Well, I would put it in the charter because as the
Yeah.
Parks Commission
Okay.
one reads right now, it says they may
Okay.
appoint an assistant director.
Yeah.
If this said may appoint, the commission may appoint a net manager of economic development, that gives them the option to be able to get one in there, gives us the ability to write the ordinance so they can score the job, so they can figure out what goes where. And then the commission could say, okay, maybe this job is, they could say maybe it's a part-time job. And
Sure.
we were gonna score it as, this is the qualifications we want for it. That way, we're not spending $70,000 to $100,000 if we don't need to mandatorily do it.
Right.
But if we could have somebody part-time that the commission found as a worthy candidate, they have the ability to may appoint.
Okay. I like it. Mrs. Everhart?
Megan Eberhardt, and I have over 15 years of professional experience in economic development. And to echo Councilman Heidick's, I feel that putting the word manager in a charter is going to tie the hands. And if economic development is a significant priority that council wants to focus on, I think that Councilman Heidick's proposal of having an employee dedicated to economic development activities gives then the planning department, the administration, and council, and all parties involved the opportunity to find what's best at that time. Tonight's conversations have a lot been about change, and you're trying to predict the future and what change would look like. Having been a member of the Barberton Health Commission many years ago, and part of the commission that folded into the Summit County Commission, that Board of Health Commission here is still here. It has been tried to how do we redefine that change, and they've been trying to figure out what's their role. And so I just use that as an example of we don't know what the crystal ball is going to be like in the future. And so, setting priorities that are important, but having it not as clearly defined with like a title of manager, I think then allows for that flexibility needed to operate by still achieving the goals of having it as a priority for the community.
Thank you. Does anyone else? Oh, Mr. Mayor?
With this position, I think this is better served as an ordinance. To your point, I'm not sure how HR or the law department or the planning commission would look at, do we make this position full-time, do we make it part-time, what is the need? HR and law may have something, or rules may have something, depending on the wording in the charter. I don't know if you can just arbitrarily change it to part-time, so you'd have to have 2 job descriptions outside of the charter. And those, so I don't know how that flow would happen, right? Also, the greater flexibility when it's in an ordinance to change, as times change. We try to review every job description every year or so and make sure that it's, when I started, you still had to be proficient in a typewriter, right? So there's things that you have to review to make sure that it's up to date. So I think this is better served as a ordinance. The other thing is, if it's under the charter, under the planning commission, and we have a great planning commission, but if there are cutbacks, planning commission, parks commission has the kind of the hiring of certain positions, but what about if there's layoffs? That doesn't fall on the planning commission to do that. And I'm bringing up the doom and gloom because, we were there at one point, right? Very bad times. So you got to consider kind of all facets of the conversation.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, up to page 25. This is going over term limits for board and commission members. Does anyone on my committee have any thoughts or?
I'm sorry, I missed page.
Oh, page 25.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. Hold on 1 minute. Mrs. Beck?
This is one thing I'll just add to my comment that I made about the first term limit discussion, and this is even shorter, for 2 consecutive terms. These people are volunteers.
Oh, hell with that word again.
And, in a lot of cases, that's what they've done their whole life. That's their job background, and I'm not talking about being on the commission.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about, that's what they know best. And some of them wrote the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But also, like, you're going to exhaust the people that want to do it, that are qualified to do it, that would be good at it, that would put the time in. But also, let's say that we have exhausted those people that want to be on these things or are qualified to be on these things. Then we are in violation of our own charter. What happens then? I might want to back up just a tiny bit and bring up for council members, Mrs. Hager was the only person that ran in her ward. This would be a very rare thing to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what happens if nobody runs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then we appoint.
I guess we'd point, yeah. But I don't know, it just seems like such a strange way to kind of shoot ourselves in the foot a bit. I mean, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I feel about it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Heidick.
I see 2 people out in the gallery there that stepped up and never met them before this.
Yeah.
And how refreshing and how great of a take did they have?
Yeah.
Okay, now, let me finish.
Sorry.
On the planning commission, years ago, there was a member that was missing meetings because he couldn't even get up the steps anymore. How long had he been on the commission? I believe since Randy Hart was here. Okay? We're sitting here looking at modernizing a charter. We're sitting here looking at update. We had one conversation about a communications director, and I even hypothesized websites are different in the future. Are we really just going to keep doing the same damn thing all the damn time? And holy hell, am I sick of hearing volunteers? Okay? They are knowledgeable. They know. Yes, they volunteered. You volunteer to do things. We all volunteer to do things.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't put people on pedestals here, for crying out loud. But this just says 2 consecutive terms. You can be off and be reappointed. You just gotta sit a term out. Expand the damn pool and give people a chance. I mean, for the love of everything. Again, I am the happiest person in the world that those 2 people sitting in the gallery right now. But when are they gonna get? Counselor Easterling, how many times did you apply for a board and commission? You said it in your interview.
Several.
How many callbacks did you get?
I was actually told that never received my application, and I was carbon copying Justin on him when he was a councilman just to make sure that they went through.
President Greer, you verify that?
Several, not more, not one, not 2, several.
Okay.
Wait. Okay.
Good. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. One moment. Does council have anything? Mr. Harris, did you have your hand
No, I'm
up?
gonna wait till the next subject.
Okay. Does the gallery have anything? Oh, Mrs. Miller?
I do not agree with Mr. Heidick, but that's okay. I do agree with his spirit of his intent. So perhaps there could be some language, you all do confirm all of the appointments. So if there's something maybe you could work on, this is just me personally speaking, I think that you could work on something about the appointment, right? When you get to the planning commission, selected by the mayor, appointed by council, I can't remember, it's too late. I've lost my mind now.
Approved by council.
Thank you. Maybe you can strengthen that language. But I personally, I have to advise the planning commission and the BZBA, and the Parks Commission's a little bit different. They don't really have a lot of legal questions, but BZBA does. And those folks are, I know that you don't believe this, but they do have a special knowledge. And so do the folks on the planning commission. Now, can you address it in some other fashion? I think you can. But I would have reservations. Obviously, if that's the charter, and we will abide by that. But that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Kind of the same sentiment, and Chuck, I'd love to talk to you about that and find out more.
Absolutely.
My fear is if you can't fill a committee, are there things like BZBA, which is busier now than it ever has been, because we're citing property maintenance and people are coming in to kind of appeal that. If you can't seat that board or that commission, what's the next step? For BZBA, if you can't fill that with qualified people, does it just go straight to common pleas and it's out of our hands? I don't know what that step is. If you can't field a planning commission or a parks commission, what happens to the operations there? And I realize that they don't run the operations, but it's a question that has to be asked. So if you have a board that's functioning well and is very involved and doing a great job, do you replace them just because they've been there for a number of years? Do you replace them just on that sole fact, even though you may have someone who's applied who doesn't meet maybe the necessary requirements, or maybe they meet the requirements, but they're just not a good fit? Someone can meet all the requirements of a job, but just not be a good fit, right? So it's, again, those types of things that we need to consider. And, when I get applications, I look at them. And I use the one example, someone contacted me and wanted to sit on the Board of Health because the reason they wanted to sit on the Board of Health is because their dad was a doctor. They did nothing in the healthcare field, but that's the reason why they wanted to be on the Board of Health. I didn't put that person on the Board of Health, but they would have been a new face. But you can't change things out just because it's a new face. And I agree, we're trying to get new people, and some of you have provided new applications or ask people to apply. And I think that's great. And if we don't select them for one board or commission, we always ask them, hey, do you want to look at another board or commission? Or maybe you're not the right fit for this one. Are you willing to reapply for this one over here? So we're trying to get new faces in here. And I appreciate the council's help over the past few years in providing new names. So.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Moore?
Just a personal note on that, and I think maybe Holly can attest to it as well. Being new to the community, but also having Tom, Nina, and Carol, who are experienced members in the community, was a wealth of knowledge. So I think being able to have the mix of people is really good. So I think maybe just setting up more, trying to get community involvement in general, but I think stunting the wealth, the knowledge that is there currently will inhibit the new people with the historical knowledge that might be valuable to the future of Barberton as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, wait 1 minute. Nobody else in the gallery? I did tell Mrs. Beck she could go next, and then you can go. Last statements on this, though. We're not going to have back and forth. Okay.
Forever on.
Yeah.
But that's, I guess I really cut mine short, and I didn't get to say that. Like, there needs to be inviting into the party. There needs to be, I think both of you two were invited in by someone. I was invited in by someone. I've invited other people to do these exact things. So really, it kind of falls into who are we bringing up behind us and showing the way. And that also goes to the people on the commissions. Maybe we kind of lean on them a little bit and say, hey, why don't you start bringing somebody up behind you, rather than just kind of cutting them out. Like, I agree with you 100%, Mr. Moore. You glean things from each other. So that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Heidick?
These boards and, thank you, Chair. These boards and commissions aren't replaced all at one time. Their terms are staggered. To Mr. Moore's point, it was great that he had never sat on that, but had people that knew. No one is going to gain that term that I can't damn stand hearing anymore, institutional knowledge, if the institution won't open the damn doors. If the doors aren't going to open, then let the voters open it for them. That's all I have to say. I'm tired of it. I didn't want to have to put term limits on board and commissions, but as I sit here, 6 years, I would say probably 80% of the people, not only are the same on the boards and commissions, but were the same 4 years before I was even here. This is a direct result. This request, this is a direct result of not opening that door. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick. I'll only make one statement because Emily just said that she was invited in. So I want to thank Becky Phillips in the front row because she invited me to council one night. Moving on, last one is the video broadcasting and recording. Does my committee have any conversation or thoughts on that? Does council? The gallery? Oh, Mr. Harris?
I'll just say that I want the transparency amongst everyone, commissions, boards, all that. But will it hamper people from actually volunteering? Because, well, you're a volunteer, and if you say something during a board or a commission and somebody doesn't like it, then next thing you know, you're getting all the heat. But, hey, you volunteered for it. I agree with the transparency. Will it hamper people from volunteering? I don't know.
Mr. Heidick?
Those boards and commission meetings are open to the public. Anybody in the public right here, if we weren't live streaming, is free to turn their phone on and live stream it. The point is, when a board and commission makes a decision, they have to make that decision regardless of who's watching or who's listening. I would even be unopposed to changing video broadcast recording. It's all on up there, even if it was audio. But there's times I've had, because of work, to miss a planning commission meeting. Yeah, I can see the minutes, but I didn't see the conversation, or I didn't hear whose points of view. There may have been 3 sentences in the minutes, but how did the minutes get to those 3 sentences? What was the thought process? What did I miss there? I can't do that. I can come back and watch us any day of the week at any time. I can be up 3 in the morning and watch this council meeting again. Never know, might. But even just the audio recording, I wouldn't be opposed to changing video and live stream to that whatever the audio recording up there is, that be published. But something besides 2 pieces of paper that are the minutes. But the meeting was 2 hours.
Right.
That can't be transcribed right away. So if the council is opposed to video, I implore you to think, I'd be happy changing it to audio. Just something. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Thompson?
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
Welcome.
This actually, ironically, this evening, I was tuning in, live streaming on my way to the fundraiser that I was at. I apologize for my casual attire. But I was able to tune in for a good chunk of the first part of the meeting. So very helpful. And not all of us can make it to planning commission, things like that, as Mr. Heidick said. And I agree, we could do audio recording. I mean, many years ago, I was the one with a tripod and my iPhone hooked up streaming this for the newspaper because this was not a thing. I also have hour-long just audio recordings, and as I'm typing out, you know, a article, I have to go back and say, oh, what exactly, how did this happen? So I'm not opposed to just switching it to audio, but I think it should be documented. So that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
My concern is having it in the charter. Obviously, audio is a lot easier these days than video. If something happens and you can't, record, or you can't live stream, record is a lot easier. If you can't live stream and you're in violation of the charter, what happens? And maybe nothing, but you're in violation of the charter. I believe the city of Norton has it in their charter to live stream, and I know for a while that they couldn't. There were some technical difficulties for a number of weeks, maybe a number of months, I don't know. So I don't know what they did to get over that, I'm not sure.
Okay.
So that's a question I just don't have an answer for. So I'm just concerned if you can't do it. Obviously, audio and then posting it after the fact is a lot different, a lot easier than live streaming. But I'm just concerned about that being in the charter on the live stream side.
Okay, that's a good point. I don't want to put Dallas and Holly on the spotlight, but do you guys have thoughts on that, being new and hearing some of this conversation? Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Holly Perry. I did serve on charter review with Dallas and got brought into it by Dallas, who got asked to apply by someone else. And so I think anyone who is willing to spend time in public service is accountable to the public. I think it's very important that we have safeguards such as the ability to watch or listen to what our representatives are doing. And one thing that I've heard repeatedly, I've done a lot of leadership stuff in my life, you take minutes, not seconds. And so you lose a lot of that color and a lot of that background when we're not able as a public to turn in. Last week I wasn't here because I work in Pittsburgh, and so I was still able to see what happened and participate because I do care what happens. And so I think it's a great option. I don't care if it says live stream, I don't care if it says audio and or video, but I think one of those needs to be there.
Okay.
Personally.
Great, thank you. Okay. We have no more green to go over tonight, and we are not, oh goodness, we have one more, I'm so sorry. Oh no, I lost page 30. Can I borrow your 30? I only go to 29.
Not my fault.
While you're looking for that, can I just?
Yes, yes.
I agree with Holly. I think we should add the language in there to say video and or audio and or video, something along those lines. Work that out. That way, you have options.
Okay, and then, page 30, prohibiting elected official's name on public property or signage. No elected official shall be permitted or allow the name of any current elected, this is so hard to read, official to be placed on signage on city property. Mr. Heidick, my eyes are getting tired.
Ordinance, not charter.
I like it, ordinance, not charter. Okay, any more comments?
I had a question about this, though. After I read it, I was like, yeah, cool, okay. But then How does that work when you like buy like a brick that gets put into like a wall or?
You've paid for your own brick. This is a city, this is
So like some-
taxpayers,
Got you.
taxpayer-funded signage.
Okay, it hit me later, but
You can buy all the bricks you want,
I
yep.
got you. Okay,
Mhm.
never mind.
Okay.
Cool.
Do you have a question over there, Mrs. Thompson?
For sponsorships, things of that nature. Is this not the same thing?
Yeah.
Are you
That's why I
talking
said-
about, are you talking about like political campaign signs on city properties?
No.
What does this refer to?
I'm talking like if the towpath sign, you wouldn't maybe have a mayor's name on it, because if you had a different mayor, you now have to
Oh.
replace an entire sign
I gotcha.
that the taxpayers
I
paid for,
gotcha.
because there's this one part of it that has to be changed.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you can put your political signs wherever you're allowed. Yeah, and Mr. Heidick?
Thank you, Chuck. That's why I say ordinance, not charter,
Yeah.
because we can define it a hell of a lot better.
I like
And
it.
adapt on the fly if need be.
I like it. All right. I believe that, was that the last page now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I feel like we still have some conversations to be had. I know next week we will be voting all of this out of the committee. So would we like to plan a meeting to discuss it more this week or weekend before next Monday?
I would make that motion.
Mrs. Thompson?
I'm so sorry, I just have a question. Is this
Yes, ma'am.
going 3 readings?
It will.
So could
So we could maybe do a special later.
Yeah, that's what I'm, because as I told you, unfortunately, like this week, it's
I
not
get
gonna
it, yeah,
happen.
I get
For
it.
me personally, not that I want you guys to.
We also have planning Wednesday night.
Yeah, not that I want you guys to like
Rules
rearrange your
committees.
schedule, but
You have rules committees between now and third reading anyway.
yeah,
Right, because we would be talking about it as pending at that point.
absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
So it might not even be necessary.
Yeah, it's a good
so,
thought.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that was a good meeting, everybody. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I will make that motion.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll think about it. Second.
Well, I'll keep it open all night, Mr. Heidick. Okay, we are adjourned at 8:37 PM.
Thank you, Ms. Gerhart.
You're welcome.
That concludes our individual committee meetings. Let's take a 20-minute break and come back and,
Thank you.
That's it. I'll think about it.
we've been at this for,
Let him go. He said 20.
20?
I'll think about it.
We'll take a 20-minute break. Get up, stretch. All right, thank you. Oh, look at that.
Long ways to go yet.
This one should be quick.
Yeah, this was fast.
Yeah, I'm gonna make mine like 5 minutes long.
One thing.
Hey, I'm gonna, for this evening, I'm gonna call on you to, for the recap for finance.
Makes sense.
All right, I figured. All right, we're going to go ahead and begin. Today's May 19th, 2025. This is Committee of the Whole meeting for Barberton City Council. I call this meeting to order at 9:02 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Citizens addressing council. Okay, thank you. I was going to say, I did not write that down. All right, committee reports. We'll start with streets, sidewalk, and lighting. Mrs. Beck.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening, we met in council chambers. We discussed one piece of legislation, a letter from Michael Teoducky to pay for the bid for the Van Buren sidewalk. And with that, I pass.
Excuse me. Thank you, Ms. Beck. Environmental Health and Social Services, Mrs. Hager.
Thank you, Mr. President. Environmental Health and Social Services met this evening in council chambers. We spoke briefly about dropping off tree debris, and that was it. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Hager. Planning and Annexation Codes, Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning and Annexation as Codes is calling for legislation to pay an invoice to Ohio Edison in the amount of $14,898.59 for the removal of light poles on 2nd Street Northwest. Emergency wording and one reading requested has been referred to Finance. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick. City Properties, Park and Recreation, Mr. Easterling.
Thank you, Mr. President. We met May 12th here in council chambers, and we had one piece of legislation that was referred to rules, and that's a letter from Councilman Bebe Heidick requesting the permit to sell commercially zoned property for appraised values, and it was referred to rules. So with that, we have nothing else, and with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Easterling. Public Welfare and Safety, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public welfare and safety has nothing to report. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Rules Marking Development, Ms. Gearhart.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rules Marking and Development met last Monday, May 12th, and this evening, May 19th. And both evenings, we discussed the proposed charter amendments from the Charter Review Board and then from other council members. And that's all. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Ms. Gerhart. City Utilities, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Utilities met on May 12th. All members of my committee were present, myself, Chair Jennifer Hager, Emily Beck, and Justin Greer, and all others as noted. We had one piece of legislation to call for. A letter from Todd Shreve, Service Director, requesting legislation to enter into contract with Brown Equipment Company, DEC, in the amount of $500,000 for the purchase of a new Ramvac HX9TA, emergency wording requested. We made a motion to call for this piece of legislation. It passed, and we don't have any pending legislation other than that. That'll be voted on next week. With that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Finance and Personnel. Mrs. Thompson is chair, but Mr. Heidick, co-chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance and Personnel is calling for the following. Legislation to pay an invoice to Ohio Edison in the amount of $14,898.59 for the removal of light poles on 2nd Street Northwest. Emergency wording, one reading requested. It was referred from planning. Legislation to amend ordinance 47, 2021, compensation for elected officials affecting the council president and the 2 at-large positions. Legislation to appropriate $3,000 from the unappropriated item of the general fund to the Parks Administration operating and maintenance budget of the general fund. 1 reading, emergency wording requested. Legislation to appropriate $15,000 from the unappropriated line item of the general fund to the fire department's operation and maintenance budget. 1 reading, emergency wording requested. Legislation to authorize payment to Multi-Force Systems Corporation for the annual fuel serve contract in the amount of $3,944. 1 reading and emergency wording requested. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick. All right. That concludes our committee reports. The only thing I have to report is next Monday is Memorial Day, so we won't have council on the 26th. However, we will just shift it over a day, and it'll be on the 27th. Is there anything else from the body? Anything from the department head? Chief? Anything? All right. Mayor's report.
Mr. President. Change for Change this Friday, VFW, for Quilts of Valor, honoring former Councilwoman Joyce Coburn. As mentioned earlier, the traffic lights at South Van Buren and Snyder are functioning. Last week, I had the pleasure of attending the Barberton Schools Business Advisory Committee, and once again, they were rated with 3 stars by the state. I'll be very proud of the work that this commission or committee is doing, and what the schools are doing, and the opportunities these students have. Very, very impressive. So there's a presentation by the Advanced Manufacturing Group, and the students were just really remarkable. Worked together, were able to do a lot of great things. The equipment in their lab, CNC machines, lathes, programming, everything's top of the line. And through business visits, I know that there's businesses in town that have 20 or 30-year-old CNC machines, and this is top of the line new things. This is great for the community. Working with the schools and their kind of mantra of you're going to finish high school with either plans to go get an education, to enlist, or get employment. And I know, I told these kids, I can get you a job right now. You finish high school, you turn 18, you can get a job with what you guys know here in Barberton. So we're continuing to work with them on that, and just something they're very proud for the community that they've got this compact program here at Barberton. Also, last week, attended a meeting at the Haven of Rest concerning homelessness. We're still meeting. We're still trying to make some breakthroughs, working with our partners throughout the county. And we are making headway, but this is a subject matter that's a marathon, definitely not a sprint. There's been some changeover at the Continuum of Care. That's kind of a regional Summit County organization, also CSS. So we're still navigating through them, but working with Haven of Rest and all these other different organizations and agencies to mitigate and combat this issue. We have had a lot of success here in Barberton in finding permanent, long-term shelter for those that previously did not have shelter. But again, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So definitely more information coming soon. Want to reiterate what was brought up before and thank the police, fire, and service departments for their work this past weekend. Number one, and most important, no fatalities with the storm. No reports of flooding. We did have, regionally, there was over 120,000 First Energy customers who lost power. Again, that was regionally. They did bring in, I think you mentioned it, people from other parts of the state, from Toledo and other places, and then people from Pennsylvania and other areas as well. So thank you to all the linemen who were out there as well. There is a real estate tax relief available to victims of the recent storm here through the Summit County Fiscal Office. It's form DTE 26. It can be downloaded on the fiscal website under damaged property. That's fiscaloffice.summitoh.net. And you have till the end of the year to turn that in. So a press release went out from Kristen Scalise's office earlier today. Just a few stats. Saturday we had 14 employees. This is on the service side. not police or fire service side. 14 employees logged 101 hours of time and a half. First came in at 12:56 a.m. Last employee left at 5:04 on Saturday, 5:04 p.m. on Saturday. Worked very well. Chief Polachek opened up an EOC. A lot of communication, a lot of work being done, getting barricades out, working with First Energy, working amongst the departments. And they were out there again today. We had two trees, one on the east side, one on the west side. I believe the one on the east side was just too big for our crews, but I believe both are cleaned up and passable now. So I believe, Councilman Harris, you may have brought this up. Lines down and the tree brings a line down. We can't go out there until that line is de-energized. Not only that, we can't go out there until the line's removed. So there were some cases where, hey, First Energy was out here, the residents contacted me, they did something, they left. Obviously, it must be safe. It's not safe. They came back a few hours later. I don't know if they had to get equipment or what they had to do, and so it took them a few more hours. So I tell everyone, those lines, if they're live, they can zap you from a few feet away. Just stay away, right? But still some work to do. The roads are passable. That's our first priority from a service division perspective. Now we got to get into the parks. So restroom up at Brightenstein, large tree at Tuscarora Park. Don't even know what happened to the dugout at Foundation Fields because there's no trees around it, but it's obliterated, one of them. Trees down, all the parks and Lake Anna and all that, so they'll be busy doing that for the next few days here. On the safety side, 68 911 calls for service from May 16th through Saturday the 17th, just about the storm. And I believe you contacted me as 40-some in 3 hours? 3 hours. Less than 3 hours. So these storms seem to always hit at night, on the weekends or holidays. So, but, while we're all sleeping and everybody kind of had to deal with different things. Some people didn't have any damage, no power outage, they didn't know anything had happened, right? Other people got the full gamut, right? So while we're dealing with whatever we're dealing with, or not having to deal with anything, these men and women are working very hard out in the field, protecting us, making things safe, or like my administrator coordinators were getting emails, responding, calls, returning messages, things of that nature. So it's an all hands on deck movement. So I want to thank everybody who is involved. So that's all I have. Yes.
Thank you. I noticed you didn't mention Edgewood. I'm sure you're aware there was some pretty big damage there as well. I did contact Mr. Patterson this afternoon when I drove by and noticed it. I also noticed that it wasn't taped off or anything. He did say the cords were locked. However, I think it might be smart if we can tape it off somehow because the one side is collapsed and there were kids climbing up onto it. So I don't know if it's been done. That was just this afternoon, and since you didn't mention, I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Yeah, I didn't go through all the damage of every single thing.
Oh, I know. There's yeah, I mean, it's devastating, but I just didn't know if it was taped off yet or not, and if not, maybe that's something they can do soon, hopefully. Thank you.
I just want to clarify between what Mr. Harris said and what you had said. I understand Ohio Edison has to come out, de-energize the line, remove the line. Does First Energy then chop up the tree to get it out of the street, or do we get to come in and chop it up?
What I've been told is sometimes.
So you're both right.
So maybe,
You're
I'm not
both
sure if it
chopping up
depends
trees.
on the
Okay.
crew. I'm not sure if they've got other calls and they're not going to spend time chopping it up.
Okay.
Maybe it's the size of the tree, I'm not sure. Their main focus is the energy.
Right.
And so, yeah, I heard from our guys, and they're like, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
I got you. Okay. I just was hearing they fully did it, and then we kind of did it, and I'm like, I wonder which way it goes. So that's all.
We're both right, I guess.
It's all up in
Oh,
the
yeah.
air. It's just.
It wasn't a
sometimes they
right or
do it,
wrong, I was a
sometimes they
curiosity. Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
I believe it depends on who the subcontractor is, because First Energy will pull from this tree, whatever their agreement is, it might be completely remove the tree or just the street or just the property. And that's where, you know, we had Penn Air from, I had a crew from Finley that I told them about the Barberton chicken, and they went, hey. But anyway, they had something different. They completely removed the tree all the way, whereas the crew that was a street over didn't, and they were a different company. So again, it's all up in here depending on what.
Okay, that makes
what happens.
sense. And I like that chicken and hot rice bribe idea. I'd move a tree for that.
Thank you, Mayor. I was too lazy to look it up, and you may not know. What did the winds top out at, miles per hour Friday?
So I had heard internally that it only topped out at like 27 miles an hour. But then I was talking to a reporter and he said that 70. So we have a kind of a wind gauge on this building. Power got knocked out, so it's not going to be accurate. Let's say anywhere between 70 and 27.
Sounds like it's right.
Okay, time my power didn't go out in the store. Am I paying attention? I'm getting
Do you know if we cleaned the tree up on State? Because it's gone.
The one hanging on the line?
Well, it was across the road. East State and 3rd and 4th. Oh, I'm sorry, East Lake.
East
3rd and 4th.
I'm not sure.
Because when I came to council this morning, or this afternoon, Spectrum was there putting up their new transfer lines, you know, the big ones.
Yeah.
But the tree was gone. So
I know
we didn't
crews
do
were
it.
out on 29th and Lake today.
That was a big
and
tree.
They held over a couple employees to finish up some things.
I just want to make one more safety point. A lot of tree damage will not be noticeable until the leaves are dead on those sections. They might be hanging up in trees for quite some time. So please be cautious when you're walking through the woods anywhere, because again, some of this stuff doesn't just pop up overnight. It might take weeks for the leaves to dead on those part of the tree that are still dead up there. So give it some time, you know, be very careful, be diligent, be aware of your surroundings, and anytime you're around a tree, especially after a heavy storm like that.
Thank you. I never thought of that before.
Anything else?
He had his hand
Oh,
up.
I just want to mention in report to the tree at East Lake and between 3rd and 4th, they still had the barricades up because Spectrum was working, but the tree was cleared, as Ms. Beck pointed out, and they had that done. It took a long time, but
Yeah.
that's just a block away.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we have the size of chainsaws that.
It's a big tree. It's a big tree.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. With nothing else, this meeting is adjourned at 9:19 PM. Thank you.
You eat sushi and everything?
I eat my Cheetos with my sushi. I don't want orange fingers.